meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local channel Access 18 and available on the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. So first start with public information. Anything from the board?
I just had one quick thing, hopefully if the microphone doesn't malfunction. Just one bit of clarification, because I did get some feedback on the residential tax exemption vote that we had recently, and I did just want to make sure it was clear to public and folks, residents, part-time residents, everybody, that the board did not vote down the residential tax exemption. We voted to put in place it's a trigger point, so if our population reaches 60% non-resident, 40% resident for 2 consecutive years, it would trigger the residential tax exemption. And in addition to that, we are also working on a more robust program of exemptions to help prevent that number from actually occurring and hopefully not ever triggering it at all, but that is what the board decided. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
I just had one thing. I've been on the Charter Review Committee with a few other people in this room, and tomorrow night's sort of our final meeting before we bring it before this board next week. And we've already sent it to council. It's been going along swimmingly, and a lot of people working hard and getting a good product. So look forward to next week seeing the proposed changes for the new charter. And with that, we're not quite at 5:35, so we can't go into our public hearing quite yet. Let's see, what should we,
Could we do the,
charge is a little long. Yeah, we'll go down to administrative, knock a couple of those off real quick.
yeah.
The Nauset Light Beach Road, to refer to the planning board.
I just talked about this with John Giorgio today because I'm so confused. But we're basically, Nauset Light Beach Road is in danger of falling into the ocean. We've been working on trying to come up with some plan to connect the stable part of the road to Cable Road for, I want to say, 4 years now. Last year, we determined with the Seashore Park 5 different routes, laid out those routes, had public meetings with the neighborhood, basically allowed sort of everyone to vote which road choice they wanted, settled on a choice, and that's what's proposed to you this evening. We have fully permitted it. The Seashore, we went through the MEPA and NEPA review and National Heritage for endangered species. We also had to do some test pits for the archaeological studies, and that is all complete, and we're ready to go. It's a little bit different process because while we are laying it out as a town road, it does not belong to us right now. We are going to be building this road on seashore land with a license from the Seashore Park pending a land exchange. So what we're going to do right now is go through the layout process like we did in Hay Road, file the plan with the town clerk, and then we'll come back hopefully next year with the actual land swap that will go to town meeting. This will allow us to do the emergency building of the road, not waiting for that second process to happen. But usually we would do that in the same year. We would lay out the road, then go to town meeting, then build it. Right now, we're going to build it with the license for the Seashore and come back to town meeting next year. So it's complicated, but necessary.
All right. So we need a vote to refer it to the planning board.
I'll make a motion to refer the new road to the planning board.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. And it's 5:35. Perfect. So, public hearing. I got to read the little spiel here. All right. The Eastham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 3rd, 2020 at 5:35 p.m. in the Earl Mountain Room, Eastham Town Hall, 2500 State Highway, Eastham, Massachusetts, in order to review and discuss 2 proposed bylaws, Plastic and Marine Hazards Reduction Bylaw and Plastic Beverage Bottle Bylaw, for placement on the May 4th, 2020 annual town meeting warrant. Said bylaws will discontinue the sale and distribution of the certain single-use plastic and polystyrene items within the town of Eastham, including bottles, water and carbonated beverages less than 34 ounces, straws, nip bottles, balloons filled with lighter-than-air gases, checkout bags, food containers, including bowls, cups, cutlery, trays, coolers, and plates, with certain exemptions for the Council on Aging, disabled persons, and emergency situations. Copies of proposed bylaws are available at the Conservation Office, 555 Old Orchard Road, and the Eastham Town Hall, 2500 State Highway, Eastham, Mass. So first, I think, Karen, are you here?
Yeah.
If you wanted to come up and just sort of give us, I guess, a brief summary of sort of why, we came up with this, and how long we've been working on it. And I know you had also proposed some changes. We had the letter in our packet to maybe highlight some of those, and then the board can discuss it a bit, and then we'll open it up for the public hearing, for the public here.
Sometimes it's just too much paper. Had the changes, I guess I don't have. Do the changes. So let me start with how we got started here. That about a year ago or so, I drafted a bylaw addressing polystyrene bags and balloons, and brought it first to the Conservation Commission, where we talked it over, and then brought it to the Select Board. It addressed plastic shopping bags and polystyrene food service items and balloons filled with helium and other lighter-than-air gases. One of the reasons I was proposing this is that these are items that are affecting our oceans and our marine life, and I personally have seen balloons in turtles and bags and such like that. I pick up a lot of this trash in my walks, and I felt like it was time for Eastham to go forward with this. And Wellfleet has done it, Orleans has things in place, and other towns have as well.
Right.
That's the origin of that.
All right.
So in between, so it turned out there wasn't quite enough time to make it onto the warrant, and then 2 petition articles were filed, one for bags and one for polystyrene. They both passed overwhelmingly at the meeting last May, with an effective date of November 1st, 2020. Okay. So after that, those petitions had no enforcement as part of their filing, so we came back to the bylaw again. We talked to you again in November, at which time it was also proposed that we do a bottle bylaw. In the meantime, the Select Board had passed a policy on a municipal ban of bottles, of water in plastic bottles. And so the Conservation Commission got to work on a bottle bylaw, and we came up with banning water, carbonated beverages, and carbonated soft drinks, following up on what had been done in West Tisbury, Chilmark, and I can never pronounce that, Aquina. Close enough, maybe?
Aquina.
Yeah, okay. So they passed in those 3 towns a bylaw banning water and soft drinks, carbonated soft drinks in bottles less than 34 ounces. And that went into effect this past January. And once that was drafted, it was sent around to various, to the Select Board and to various town officials, and we've been with the Board of Health, and there's been a bit of back and forth on that.
And you've had several meetings at Conservation.
Several meetings with the Conservation Commission about it, several meetings with the Board of Health. We've had feedback from the fire chief about the emergency provisions of the bottle bill, and we adopted different language because of that and because of the Board of Health for emergency procedures. And then we had the public information session this past Wednesday, where we learned a lot. I hope other people learned a lot. And
Yeah, it was a good meeting.
yeah, It was a good meeting.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
It's always a good meeting when people are exchanging their views and,
Yep.
and when information is getting out there. So that brings us.
Wish every meeting could be full like this, you know. Usually we have one or two people, and they're the reporters, you know.
Yeah, and from all that feedback and from Jim Bachman and I came up with, well, the Conservation Commission came up with some changes following a meeting, following all the feedback, and then we came up with additional changes following a meeting with the Board of Health, and then following up on the feedback from Wednesday. We wrote a memo that I believe has been passed around the room,
Oh,
and
it
it was
has,
sent to you, that outlines the changes we were looking at. Do you want to go through them for us?
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry. I have asthma, I have to stop once in a while.
I'm the backup here. Right. Yes, we thought it was important to eliminate the 10-cent bag fee, and to also to really focus on what it is that floats in the water. Those, the thin handled, checkout bags, the plastic things, and eliminate a lot of the confusion that we thought maybe was going on in the proposal about recyclable this and that and the other thing, and really just say, as long as it's not one of those thin, we put in 3.5 mils, sorry, as the standard, which we believe is correct. Really focus on saying, just as long as it's not that kind of checkout bag, because that's in fact what's been causing the havoc with marine animals. We then, we felt that there was also a lot of confusion by saying what was allowed. And so by focusing on simply one thing that's not allowed, we can get rid of a lot of confusing language in the proposed bylaw. We felt that for the bottle bylaw, that there was a lot of usage of people of the, what I call the liter size, the one that fits into your refrigerator door for bottled water and carbonated beverages. So that's why we recommended making it, rather than less than 34 ounces, that if it was 24 ounces or less, it wouldn't be allowed, which would allow that liter-size bottle. We thought that given the complexities for the business community, that in November 1, 2020 was overly ambitious for having any fines starting, especially for the bottles. On the checkout bags and the polystyrene, there's been plenty of notice because it was passed at town meeting last year. But for the bottles, we felt that maybe a starting date for fines of January 1, 2022 would be more reasonable, and that the two bylaws should have the same dates, again, to reduce confusion. Pardon? Oh, and NIPS, we felt that there were some compelling points being made by the business community about NIPS, that the purchasers of NIPS are very highly motivated for that product, and that we were trying to have be focusing on products where there were reasonable substitutes, alternative things that you could purchase. And for NIPS, we were persuaded that that's not the case, and the same behavior is going to continue. And we don't, we think it's not reasonable to have a bylaw that, so disadvantages our retailers when this, on the ground, the same thing is going to be happening. It doesn't accomplish anything. And then we wanted to pass on some of the suggestions that were coming out of the group on Wednesday, and that's this sort of A through F, just trying to capture some of the feedback that we thought that was important, especially, any pressure that can be brought to bear at the state level, because obviously it's much better to do these things at the state level if that's possible. And for things like the checkout bags and a lot of these things, that seems to be unrealistic at the moment because the governor has promised a veto. So that's sort of I think, where our recommendations are.
All right. Has everyone, or a lot of people, seen the, sort of their end of their memo here about doing additional things with, you know, lobbying the state for global things? Oh, you haven't?
I haven't seen any.
Okay, it was in our packet. Oh, there. If you could hand those around so people could see them while we're maybe discussing some of the things up here.
So one of the other things I did want to point out is that the polystyrene, the bags, and the bottle bylaws all have a substitute, multiple options for substitutes for businesses at this time. So there was nothing in these bylaws that we targeted that businesses could not pivot to some other product.
Right, and it pretty much mirrors what the petition bylaws were, or petitioned
Yes,
articles
yes.
were, except for the addition of, I think,
Balloons.
balloons and straws.
Well, I think the
it have
petition had
straws?
straws,
Oh, I didn't know.
It had straws.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
and, yeah.
Didn't have balloons.
And balloons should not be a big problem for businesses, as nobody in town is
Nobody
actually
does yet. so
selling
it
them.
would-
They've
we're
been
not-
using
yeah.
them a bit for pointing out that when there's an open house for a real estate sale or something else, but other
We
options
put
are
whirly
available.
gigs and, yeah, there are substitutes for those too, so.
And one of the things that did come out at the meeting on Wednesday night is that we need to do a lot more education about what recycling is, what the situation with the recycling is in town and throughout the country, because we heard a lot from people that we just need to put out more recycling bins and find more for litter. When in fact, that most of what's getting collected for recycling, and Eastham collected 78 tons of plastic last year, is not actually getting recycled. It's not getting turned back into a plastic that is going back into the bottles. The bottles that we're talking about, the polystyrene, that's all virgin new materials.
Right.
So even if we did collect it, it would not have a big impact on the amount of plastic that is coming into the community.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much, and thanks for all your
Oh,
work.
I guess one other thing, if you opt out of this bylaw, I know a petition has been filed, there is some very specific language in the bottle bylaw on emergency use and following recommendations from the fire chief and the Board of Health that we'd like. The petition article has the generic boilerplate stuff. We started with that as well. And we'd like that language to continue in whichever bill goes forward to
okay.
the town.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. And so I'm going to go ahead and just sort of, been on the board since this started last year, and following, Karen came up with this really great bylaw last year, but then the petition articles were there, and they were there in time to basically go to town meeting, and like she said, they passed overwhelmingly, and so we've been sort of waiting for this other one to come along. And the marine one really echoes those petition bylaws, and I wholeheartedly support us, putting that on the warrant this year. As far as the bottle one, I do have some issues with it. I know they've, talked about dropping the nips off it. But again, like Karen mentioned, the market for these things really is not there for recycling. And really, we need to reduce using these things. But at this time, it's pretty far-reaching, I think, that bottle, the whole bottle bill. So personally, we're going to open it up to the board to discuss, but I wouldn't really support that going forward at this time. But I do support the petition article that's come along for water. And that's just bottled water, and I believe theirs is under a gallon. So that's everything from, the little bottles, the little bitty ones, up to, I know those smart water ones are a liter or so. And we just really need to, look at reducing what we're consuming in plastic. And they've submitted that bylaw, I believe, in all 15 towns. 13? 11, sorry. They're getting there. They're going across the Cape, submitting them in every town. And so it would be something blanket across the Cape. Now, it may be that we tweak it a little bit with a bylaw that's identical with some language that Karen has talked about for emergency uses, but we'll discuss that further down when we open it up for the public. So those are sort of my initial thoughts.
That we can read,
Which,
the petition article?
it was submitted, it's
was
in our
in the packet.
packets online, if you can see it. I don't have a hard copy.
You want me to go make some?
I have one hard copy.
She has one. Do you guys have any extras that, by chance?
Yeah. You want to make a
You want to make a
copy?
few copies? Lori will go make a
Lori's
few
gonna make
copies,
some
too.
copies.
But we can start to
You know where it's online here? You know where it is online?
discuss it as the board.
The packet,
All right, anyone have,
meetings and
Okay, quiet,
agendas.
quiet, quiet.
Because I looked at.
they'll be back with the copies in a little bit, but we'll start discussing, if you
The
could,
only thing for this meeting was the agenda.
what is everybody looking at? Is there some emergency or something?
No, they're looking at they're trying to find the packet.
Oh, okay. The copies are going to come down, so.
Where was that dark blue stuff? Select board meeting.
So just for clarification though, folks, the marine plastics hazard reduction bylaw and the CONSCOM's plastic beverage bottle bylaw, that's what the public hearing is for.
Right.
The petitioned article, the select board has no control over, nor does the CONSCOM. So they get to vote to recommend it to town meeting or not, but we cannot amend it or do anything to that. So if we can focus on the first two, and then we'll get you all the information that we can about the petitioned article. And there are a couple of others, but not about this item.
Okay, but I think one thing we could do is amend our bottle bylaw to match theirs with the addition of the public safety. If, I believe, if we chose. It's the same kind of heading. It's generally the same concept, not as broad. So, anyone else on the board have any thoughts or suggestions?
So
Jamie?
the packet is on the on the town website, and it is on the town Facebook page, so you can just click on there real quick if you need to from your phone right now. I guess, I did have a quick question, actually, just to clarify on the balloons thing. I do know no one in town really sells balloons, but I have seen them used as like accessories at gas stations and things like that. And in the language of the proposal, it has helium specific, and I'm wondering if that could be problematic in those situations. Is it only for sale, or is it for use to, or is it?
Yeah, I believe it's release.
It's for sale, distribution, and release of helium and lighter. It's for sale, distribution, and release of balloons with helium or other lighter-than-air gases. So if somebody wanted to blow up a balloon with their own air, they could hang that at their gas station or whatever, or use some other product.
Put them on a stick.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
You know, there's whirligigs, and there's banners, and there's other
But you
things
could
that
totally still
bring
use a
people-
balloon on a stick, and it looks like it's
Yes.
floating.
Yeah,
It's not.
okay.
It's true. Any other Martin?
Well, I think Karen and Jim and the Conservation Commission have done a lot of work, and they've provided a lot of good background information. I don't think we should refer this article to town meeting.
The bottle one? Or,
Either of them. Well, the bottle one in particular, I think what we should do is write a letter to our seer and Sarah Peak requesting the state take some action. But until the state takes action, any town that has these articles or bylaws is at a disadvantage because people just go to another town to buy whatever they want. And it's really, as a bylaw, it would be anti-business, and we've been accused of being anti-business before. And I think the demography of Eastham is such that the business owners are a small percentage of town. And I think if we send this to town meeting, it's likely to pass. And to the disadvantage of the small business owners in our town. And I'm impressed by the letters that we've received from them.
I'm going to just let Jared
Yeah.
give his.
Just going off what Martin said, I agree that on its face, this does look like anti-business because that's what it is. I think the importance of this, to me, at least the way that I'm seeing, is that it starts the discussion. Ultimately, it's not about this board or CONSCOM or anyone else. It's about town meeting and what's decided there. I think this is a great way to start the conversation because increasingly there's alternatives to all these issues that we're having. It's just to start the conversation, and I'm really glad that we've engaged the community on this and that many of the business owners are here. And I think we can work together on this to come up with something that we all like, because we're all here to support the will of the town. And to me, this just opens it up, and I hope that we can all work together to find ways to help the environment at the same time as not hurting businesses, not hurting people's purchasing power, because I agree that we can't just do it in Eastham because then people just go to an adjacent town. So I'm glad that we've started this discussion and hopefully can find a way to tweak it that we can all agree on it, that it's positive.
Jamie?
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what Jared's saying. And I do think the changes that were made are maybe a little bit of a easier way to move into this era, because I think, you know, regardless of if this passes at town meeting or not, it's coming. You know, it's, you know, whether it happens now or if it happens a couple years from now at the state level. But we all have a responsibility here. I mean, I live in town, I have a business, we switched over to paper a long time ago. It's not a food business, so again, it's a little easier in retail when it's just bags that you're switching over, but we did it years ago. And it was fine. We survived. It wasn't a hard transition. It was easy to find product. I know there are bigger issues with food, and that's something, I think that's why we're all kind of, you know, we want to hear from the businesses, while at the same time hearing from the community. It's a balance. And you know, I think that's what we're trying to do, is to make a collective decision that works for everybody, but also is going to work 100 years from now, too.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what was said there. I know with, you know, East Tim's never really first in these things, so. I mean, somebody has to be first. I know Orleans and Wellfleet have already done a lot of this with bags and the polystyrenes and things like that. So, you know, we're not first, we're sort of in the middle of it already, so I don't think it would be that large of an impact for us at this time. And the water thing, if all the towns go ahead and do that with the water bottles, I think that will be a really great start for all of us. I'm going to open up to public hearing in a little bit, Maureen. And I guess that's about all I have to say. Al, do you have anything to add?
Just one quick thing. Until the Shaws and the Stop and Shops are brought into this fold,
They already are. They don't have plastic bags.
I'm thinking about the bottles particularly.
Oh,
You could buy bottles there, I know that.
plastic, yeah.
Until that happens, we're really.
Well, there are alternatives now,
disadvantaging
though.
our own.
Well, there are alternatives, Martin, that aren't, you know, that much, don't cost that much more.
It has
so.
to be a state thing. Yeah.
They have them.
Yeah.
So, Jamie?
And, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Martin, but I also think that's where the responsibility is on the individual towns, and having a collective Cape-wide approach, because we have the power to tell the Shaws and the Star Markets that they can't sell them. So it's not just Eastham, it's Orleans, it's Wellfleet, it's all the other towns that need to step up their game to make this happen so that it's feasible for everybody on the
Right.
Cape.
Right.
It's not just this board, it's everybody on the Cape.
All right. So we'll open it up to the public hearing, and just come up to the microphone, and I'll give you, you know, a couple minutes. Don't go on too long, and we'll go from there. All right? So if you could come, when you come up, state your name for the record, so we know who you are, and try to speak loudly and clearly into the microphone.
Noreen Thompson, I'm from Seaview Road in Eastham. And we, for years, owned a motel. And we moved from New Hampshire, not exactly a hotbed of progressive action, but in New Hampshire, we had recyclables, and so we were introduced to that, where they had single stream recycling and all of that, curbside pickup. So we moved down here, and it was like, we're stunned that Massachusetts is so far behind. So we started doing, we were probably the only motel in the area, this is 22 years ago, that did comprehensive recycling. We thought the plastics were going to be reused, only to find out that now China's not even taking them anymore. What I'd like to propose is that as the Board of Selectmen and women, that you might send a letter to Sear and Peak asking them to, number one, update the bottle bill. It's long overdue. Maine, again, another state that's not exactly a hotbed of progressive action, has got a bottle bill that has nickel deposits on water, on everything. Anything that's sold is got a deposit on it, and that includes nips, that includes, so, and if you could, as a Board of Selectmen, write a letter to our state legislators, asking them to update that bottle bill. I had staff where I had to explain to them, okay, they said, which ones have because we had them all sorted. And my kids returned them, and they got some great money. At the end of the season, that was their vacation money, the money that they got from all those deposits. They would have had a lot more had the water bottles been included, had wine bottles been included, and whatever. If you look at the way Maine has done their recycling system, and if we copied that, and got our legislators to do that, with there's a deposit on everything. At the very least, there'd be a lot less nip bottles, and I can tell you, I go walking all the time, and I can't tell you how many nip bottles I pick up. And that would, if nothing else, Troop 83, our Boy Scout troop that does a lot of the recycling, would benefit, because they could pick up all those nip bottles, and they could return them in, and they could use them for something positive. So I really would like to, at the very least, to update the bottle bill. But I would like to ban the plastic bottles and also the plastic bags. I'm glad we're doing that. This is one that I showed last week. This is from Hannaford's. If we could all go into our supermarkets and say, this is what you need to be selling, not those stupid plastic ones. I can throw this in the wash. This one's only a little over a year old. I have two from Hannaford's that are like 9 years old that are cloth. You can throw them in the wash. So if we all go to our supermarkets and say, this is what you should be selling, not those plastic reusable ones, these. Okay, so I just would like to introduce them out of state, out of country, actually, too, because I moved here from Germany, back from Germany. And so in Germany, they're way ahead of us on this stuff, way ahead.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, we're gonna go on. Thank you, Noreen. Yeah, the only, one thing you mentioned, the deposits. There's the whole redemption stream. That's a whole nother issue that's problematic. I went and talked to over at the Superette to find out what is involved with that. And apparently there's only one company that picks up those refundable bottles, and it's very inconsistent as to when they come to get them. And so it's a whole nother problem. And then there's the recycling problem of what to do with them after they're collected. So really reduction is going to be I think the main key for the state, and that's what we'll hopefully try to push. So, Jim.
Jim Russo, 45 Old Orchard Road. I'm also speaking on behalf of the members of the Eastham Chamber of Commerce. I'm glad that tonight the business community was recognized, and how this is a rather fragile business community. It's seasonal at best. We don't have a village center that kind of unites a lot of people and brings them here. So we all stand on our own to, raise our families and whatever that, while we're operating that business. And we have business communities in Eastham are a little unique in the fact that they're owned by resident taxpayers. So they're not only managing their homes here and their families and taking care of that, but they're also having a business here in that town. And so the environment in particular is what they live from. It doesn't matter what they do. It's all about the environment. That's why the tourists are coming here. And that's, whether you like it or not, where all of our money really comes from. our income in this town. Whether you're building houses or you're servicing a computer, it's all because people are here. People that are retired here have come here because they probably had a vacation and a great experience. We want to keep that. So this is an important articles that we're talking about. We're definitely in favor of seeing this kind of work done, but to put it on the backs of the Eastham business community is a little difficult. To have them go off to the next town, we can't be the one that takes the lead. It would be wonderful, the David and Goliath story. I don't feel that same sense that David must have felt. But together, we can do things. I think if we put the pressure onto the State House, onto our legislators, that we need this passed, and why are they avoiding it? And just because Charlie Baker isn't going to sign it, I just think that, to me, wasn't a good example. I think that if a legislator isn't going to give us what we want, this is the same guy that when he needed to find the difference in his health money, he put together the EMAC, and that was all in the back. So business communities keep paying and paying and paying. So it's time that they listen to us, and we need them to hear us. And maybe that means we don't vote for Sarah or Julian again. And I know that's a terrible thing to say, because we're all
Pretty
big
extreme.
fans. I
Yep,
get it.
pretty
I get it.
extreme.
But they need to, it's more about how things poll, but what we need. And I think we need to really get that across somehow. And maybe that's what the petition should be, that we need our legislators to go and get this bill passed. Thank you.
But if you could try to hold your comments to the bylaws that are part of the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I just wanted to add a couple points of clarification. My name is Madhavi Venkatesan. I'm here on behalf of Sustainable Practices, the petitioner, Gary Senecal. And what I just wanted to clarify, first of all, I know this comment of looking at regulation from a top-down perspective has been stated a couple of times. The bottom line, and I hope all of you will think about this, is anytime legislation goes into effect, if it's not understood, the word of the regulation is adhered to, but not the intention, which is exactly what you've had happen with the plastic bag issue. The intention of the plastic bag was to eliminate plastic bags, but by specifying the mills, you actually allowed somebody to circumvent that. So grassroots movements have a purpose. The grassroots movement process ensures that people understand and the values inherent in what they're trying to pass are understood by all. So there's no potential for circumvention. That being noted, we have filed as of today the commercial single-use plastic water bottle ban, just to clarify for you, in 11 towns today. Provincetown filed. It is our goal to see this as a Cape-wide effort. Can we guarantee which town will come first? Well, Falmouth is voting on April 13th, so Eastham would not be first. Hopefully we pass there first. And then Wellfleet votes on April 27th, just for clarification. We really do believe a Cape-wide action is important, just as the points have been made here already. And also same language in that Cape-wide action is also very important, because that will allow for no loopholes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
A quick
for it.
question about that, when you were talking about the mills, because I was wondering, with that specification, it was said that they were going with that thickness because it's the thinner bags that seem to be causing the problems. Is that only because there's more of those thinner bags out there? Yeah.
Well, there's a perception that thinner bags are the ones that fly out of trucks. But the reality is, if you're trying to eliminate this, you really don't want to specify the width.
Thickness.
Because all that ends up
I like
happening is that they come back with a thicker bag. And that's been happening consistently across the state when each one of these bag bans, which have a specific width stated, are passed.
Yeah, and I do have to say, I'm agreeing with what you're saying, only too, because as you're getting into thicker plastic bags too, they are essentially more expensive than a paper bag anyway. You know, and it doesn't make sense to me.
May I, because you just sort of allowed me to come back up for a second. You have to sometimes think to yourself, not sometimes, you have to think to yourself, what is your intention? Your intention fundamentally is behavioral change. So you need to price it so that you actually produce and induce that behavioral change. It's going to be inconvenient, but sometimes it's not about getting the constituents that you're trying to have changed to be part of the discussion when that's part of the problem. I'm not saying that the retail public should not be aware of this, but this issue is going to come no matter what, to your earlier point. The question is, especially given that they're locals and they live here, they have a direct tie to the protection of this environment. So I would imagine they want to be on the front lines, not the ones being pushed. Thank you.
Thanks. All
Thank
right.
you.
Hi, Joe Turriello, 265 North Sunken Meadow. Kind of late to the party. We just moved here a few years ago. But I have two observations and/or concerns. One was at the process in general. The fact that we're talking about just starting the conversation tonight, when the gentleman mentioned that about that we're opening a conversation, we seem to be 3 months away from having this as a bylaw. The second was, I went to the information meeting the other day, and I heard from several of the merchants that they really didn't get involved in this until January. So when you're talking about a major change, I come from the corporate world, all right? We've had changes all over the last 20 years, all different theories of change. But one of the biggest things is you get the stakeholders involved early so that they know what the options are, they know what the costs are. Statements were made that there are viable alternatives available. Yeah, they are. 5 to 6 times the cost of the current alternatives. If you go online, and I just did some cursory evaluation. One of the websites was a green website that talked about using bamboo-like or biodegradable spoons. They run $65 a thousand versus $10 a thousand for polystyrene spoons or implements. Another is going to be availability. The bag law, going to paper. I don't know if anybody saw the article in the New York Post. While I don't call them one of the most scientific papers out there, New York's law goes into effect in March, and they're saying it could use up to 4 billion bags a year. That would represent over 50% of the paper bag manufacturing capacity in the United States. What's that going to do? It's going to take the bags that are available and it's going to drive the cost up. I think we can all agree this is the right thing to do, but also what was brought up was that this industry took 60 years to develop. This problem took 60 years to develop. We're not going to solve it overnight. And I think this is kind of a scorched earth policy, this one bylaw that takes all the different forms of packaging and throws it all together and says, we'll figure it out later. You're just pushing the problem over the fence here. I think we need a systematic approach, take bottles, take expanded polystyrene, et cetera, and do them one at a time. Another thing that was mentioned, and I'll just use this as my last, is talking about how recycling materials there's no market for. I happen to have a good friend who is an expert in the plastics industry. PET, polystyrene, the material used in the bottles has not changed as far as recycling prices go in the last 20 years. Clear post-consumer flake, which is what they make out of the plastic water bottles, is in high demand. And it runs right now from a low to 34 cents to a high of 46 cents a pound. I'm not sure we're looking at the right markets or what are the right ways to get rid of this. 78 tons?
Just
a lot of money
plastic.
there. We're
We're paying to get rid of it at this
Yeah.
point.
But why? There's a market there. We just may not have known where to go. Trex, the manufacturer of decking material, they will pick up the plastic bags that we're now outlawing. As a matter of fact, both Shaw's and Stop and Shop are collection points for Trex, and they pay for these bags. They say it takes 140,000 plastic bags to make 500 square foot of decking. They're doing it because it's good business. They're getting their raw materials for free. So I think we need to just reevaluate. We need to really dig into this a little bit more before we take a shotgun approach to it.
Well, I have to say, we have, it has been over a year in the making for these plastic bags, polystyrenes, the takeout materials, styrofoam, those things. It was over a year ago.
We sent out
There were
letters.
petition
As I said,
articles, we sent out
we're late
letters,
to the
everything,
party
yeah.
because we just moved
So,
up here.
and Orleans and Wellfleet, I mean, we're not, this is not some trailblazing thing. And they passed overwhelmingly those petition articles last year at town meeting. We just didn't have the timing to have the public hearing. We're having the public hearing now for that bylaw, plus the bottle one, which I think is what Jared was really referring to with, this is new.
What I
This is
saw
what we're
is a
talking
lot
about.
of data
now.
of the problem, but not a lot of data on the possible solutions and the
Well-
cost of those solutions.
Yeah.
It's been out since last year.
Yeah. But there are a lot of alternatives, and you may have found some high-priced ones, but there are some lower-priced alternatives for silverware
I would
and
hope
things
so.
like that.
Otherwise, our affordable housing will get filled
mean,
up quick
look
for
at-
people who are going to lose their businesses.
But look at,
It's already
look
full.
at the other towns, they're doing it and surviving. So,
Thank you.
but thank you. Thanks for your comments.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Bryan, and I live at 220 Oldfield Lane. All right, first I'd like to thank the Select Board for amending some of the things based on public feedback, and I'd like to thank the Conservation Commission for considering what you actually found on our beaches, and not just like something that was like arbitrary, just like plastics. It was like, oh no, we found these more often than the other ones. I would like to see what we voted on last town meeting made into bylaw. I will probably also support this petition that is not related because it is Cape-wide. I would also like to see the carbonated beverages and NIPS revisited, maybe with more collaboration with our local businesses. Maybe you could come up with like incentivizing a business to make this change instead of just straight banning it, so it could be optional. And I think that's it. Oh, right, and for food service, oh man, you have like huge catalogs of so many things, and you have a distributor, Cisco, you can go into a restaurant, grab one of those, so many different products, you can find paper. I don't really see that that's, we have what, five restaurants, we don't have many restaurants, but there are a lot of options available to restaurants for cutlery and for takeout containers, so I don't really see the issue there other than they just get to use better options. It might be a little more expensive, but there's a lot of options there. And I think that's it, thank you.
All right, thank you. And I think Jamie pointed out too that, it's kind of up to us as consumers too to change our behavior. We went to lunch recently and a friend of mine brought, some leftover containers for if we had leftovers. We put them in our own containers and left with them, so as not to use anything extra from a restaurant. So, there's other things we can do. David?
Hi, I'm Dave Schrofer, and I'm at 311 South Sunken Meadow Road, and our road is littered with nip bottles, as Maureen mentioned earlier. But there's something worse about it. I went to a liquor store to buy a product that we use, so I'm not against drinking at all. But I also had purchased a magazine that I wanted to read, and I started reading it in the car, looking up, and seeing a woman come out and putting a series of nip bottles into her pocketbook, gets into her car, pops open the bottle and drinks it. So safety is a part of nip bottle banning. And even though it sounds like, my God, this is, return to the 1930s, it isn't. It's pure safety. Also, I find that I run a business, I've talked to other business owners who say nip bottles are really a bane to us because we have employees who can go into the ladies' or men's room, have a quick nip bottle, come back out, and they're high in a short period of time. And they often do it 2, 3, 4 times a day. So it really is important to look at it. But nip bottles, because they wind up mostly on our streets, because we have to clean them up, is a very substantial reason to do what would actually amount to a public health benefit, but you don't have to approach it that way. You just approach it by banning it. and you're banning it for a very good reason. Our town has to pick up all this stuff, except for Maureen and me, we pick them up. And I also want to make a comment about businesses. As a small business owner, however, I have since retired and sold it. There's a resourcefulness that just amazes me. When you slam the door closed, everybody starts thinking about how can I make money by solving that problem. So my daughter brought to me a straw that's reusable, made out of metal and has a plastic tip. Put it in the top of my dishwasher where things lie flat, and it gets washed out that way, but it also comes with a little cleaning brush. Easy to use, no change in flavor, it's really worthwhile, but there's all kinds of other things that can be done, and businesses will find solutions to these problems. The technology should not be ignored in all of this, and it is not a static part of our lives these days. It's dynamic, and it moves towards solving problems. If the more towns that get together and do this, even though some of the bylaws are different, the more towns means more pressure on our legislators, who, by the way, the two who have been mentioned here tonight, are very much in favor of this, as far as I can tell so far. But the trouble is, there's no one thing that anybody can back yet that makes sense. So what all the towns are doing, just keep the pressure on. Enough towns get together, the county has to respond. Enough counties get together, the state has to respond. And one other thing is creating this kind of pressure is the voice of the people. And we're the lowest level of the voice of the people. There's counties and there's states and there's the federal government, which is in somewhat disarray. The fact that there are 400 bills not being passed in the federal legislation is staggering to me. And the same kind of stagnation is happening in the state. But you put the pressure on, you vote for this, you give the people of our town the opportunity to vote for this. Let them make that decision. It is the right thing to do, and I'm very glad that you're making as much headway as you are, and so also to the volunteers. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David.
Nancy Munger, 75A Pilgrim's Path. I am somewhat confused, and I have a question. So my first question is, as one of the petitioners last year, we had a thickness of 4 mils for the plastic bags, and I see it's 3.5, and so I was wondering what the rationale was. But also, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's better to leave it blank. Because I know in researching the other bylaws in other towns, they started out at one threshold in like 2010, let's say, and then every town, every following year had to make it higher because they saw it wasn't really cutting down on plastic bags. So
Yeah.
I might request that the language be amended.
That's what I think Jamie sort of
Yeah,
proposed that.
okay.
And we'll discuss it more once we close the public
Okay,
comment.
okay, that's-
To see what we'll move forward with.
Okay. And my point of confusion is on the polystyrene ban, when it would go into effect, if it's,
Yeah,
you know,
the
passed.
November 1st, 2020
Oh.
was the petitioned ones.
Right.
And even last year, when you came forward with that, we had said we'd give it the same date. Now,
Okay.
they had proposed holding off on fines
Oh.
until 2022.
Oh, okay, that's what you're.
But really, that was more for, I believe, the plastic bottle issue, because that was newer. The other one has been known for over a year.
Right.
And so I think we would keep, originally, I think it had January, we had talked about, of 2021 being, so they get 2 months, basically, to get rid of inventory, and
Including the year before.
including, yeah, they've had this.
They've got the whole summer season to
Yeah.
get rid of
Exactly.
inventory.
And
yeah.
then before fines may start. But we'll talk about that again after the
Okay.
public
I-
hearing closes to,
That helps to
decide.
clarify, thanks. And one recommendation I might make is, I know the Nauset Green Club has sourced alternative things. And so if a list could be generated and passed out to businesses of affordable alternatives. That might be very helpful.
Yeah, and I think they have researched, and they've done some great things. They
Yeah.
apparently at the high school, they got rid of all the plastic silverware there, and which seems shocking that they were using that in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
But they're really stepping up and actually accomplishing things, which is really wonderful, so.
Just that last point.
Sure.
I'm working on a list, I'm sorry. I'm working on a list, and the Nauset Green Club is also working on a list, and we're going to reconcile it together.
Great.
So long before this would go into effect, like very, very soon, we'll have a list.
Okay, great.
And continue to kind of work on that as it moves along, so that it will be a
Updated
resource.
every
The same
year.
thing would be true with the water and other things
Okay.
in the bylaws. So
Great,
Not to
great.
leave
For
businesses.
sourcing
Not to
and
do
everything.
this and leave businesses hanging, but to give them some resources as they look forward. And
that would be
they
great.
also can reach out to the neighboring towns and businesses there, so.
Yeah, okay. Did you have any other questions or
No, I'm
comments?
fine, thanks.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hi, Patty McGraw, 75 Kettle Hole. So I have a couple of kind of just really more concerns that I'd like for people to think of as they move forward. I think that what Jared said as far as opening the conversation, I think that's very valid. And even in my own business, I've started because of this conversation. Like when people eat in, I'll give them real silverware. I have the real plates. I've had that for a while, but so I am more conscious of that, and it's definitely a transition for me as an individual as well as a business owner. But, you know, just talking about it, I'm more conscious of it, and I appreciate that. But I think that one thing, although everything can be changed, I think as we move forward in consideration that it's not just about the people who are living here. Because I think the people who are living here and individually, everybody is making changes with or without laws. So I think it's more about considering the tourists that are coming into the community that are funding the businesses that are in the community. So yes, I can go and I can buy a water in a box. I can do that personally. I can carry a metal cup personally. But a tourist coming into town, as a business owner, I can buy a case of bottles of water or boxes of water. But they are several times more expensive than a bottle of water, like by a lot. Not by a little, by a lot. I have done some research on that because I'm not Shaw's. So yeah, Shaw's sells cases of boxes of water, but I'm like a little guy buying 2 cases at a time. I would have to charge like $6 for a bottle of water to a tourist. So I'm not saying there's not answers. I'm just saying that hopefully the consideration will be beyond just the individual here, but more about accommodating is really not the right word, but remembering that the tourists who are coming in are not prepared for this.
Yeah, but,
So
I mean,
I think that I have to tell you though, I have seen between my business in Provincetown and here over the past 7 years, in general, like I said, individuals are making changes. They are bringing their water bottles. And I will fill water bottles up when people bring them in and that type of thing. But not all tourists are like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's like my only, it's really more of a request, that when this is considered going forward, that the money that the small businesses are making off of the majority of the tourists that are coming in, that are on vacation, and they're in vacation mode, you know, being able to still benefit financially from that part of the business. So I just think it's something to consider, that we're not talking about just the people who live here, who have their cars with them, with their water bottles in it, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's really just a thought. And then I had a question. Would a larger retailer that is located in Eastham be able to sell multi-packs of individual use bottles? Like a 24-pack of water bottles? I don't know the answer to that question.
No.
No, I don't believe so, because it's the single-use bottle that would be.
So if they.
You couldn't sell a case.
You couldn't sell a case of them?
Plastic water bottles.
Okay,
no.
okay, that was one of the
You could sell
questions I
a
had.
case of these, but
Right.
not.
Right, okay. And then the other thing, which it was written up as a follow-up to the meeting, the informational meeting, but it hasn't been talked about here, is pursuing viable means of handling the litter Because whether there is a nickel deposit on a nip bottle or not, my guess is they're still going to be laying around.
Right.
The people who are buying the nip bottles are not really the ones who are going to be worrying about where to recycle them. So I am curious, just because it hasn't been mentioned at all, are there intentions of coming up with ways to address the actual litter itself?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, it's, hard to catch somebody in the act, as we have a few of
Right.
our police officers here can
Right.
attest to, that, following people around is,
Well, I am curious, because we were talking about this just ourselves at the meeting, and have you guys ever written a littering? And I'm not being sarcastic about it, I'm just curious. Is this something, can we deputize the lifeguards who were on the beach? Or, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing? Is there, I don't know what the answer is, but this is part of the problem, is the litter.
But,
And
yeah, I mean, a lot of the
people
litter
who are
on the
littering don't really
beach-
care about the environment to
when-
start with. So whatever container it is, whether it's a box or a plastic bottle or a plastic bag or a paper bag, if they're going to litter, they're going to litter. So,
Jackie?
I think, it's a separate issue, but I think we do need to, one of the things I'm hearing from businesses too, is we do need to deal with litter better and recycling better to the
Right.
degree that we can do it. So I think, we need to look at that, and I'll bring Silvio Janau, our Superintendent of Public Works, to a
Right.
meeting, and we can sort of brainstorm those issues.
yeah, I mean,
'cause
it is,
it's
I'm
definitely
not
worth
thinking
looking at.
anybody would have an answer to this on the spot, but, we're talking a lot about plastic bags, but, littering is part of the issue too, so it does have to be considered. And like I said, it's almost the same thing. It's not necessarily the people who live here who are doing
Right.
it.
Oh,
The consideration is the people who are coming in, and how to,
Yeah.
I hate to use the word education, because most people are intelligent adults and they understand that the environment is an issue.
Yeah, but
So I
I
think it's a
agree
little degrading to say that, but I do think that we need to be prepared for people who are not prepared for this
Yeah.
when they come in to visit here.
But I mean, what if, say they came in and you had in the past had plastic water bottles.
Right.
And they come in and you have something like this. And you say, and they're looking for the plastic, and you say, no, we don't carry those anymore, we carry this. It's much more environmentally sensitive.
And it's $3 more.
No.
It's for you, but for me to buy a case at my price, now I'm paying refrigeration, I'm paying a higher minimum
You don't have
wage.
to refrigerate water, until you're going to sell it, right? Until it's.
Exactly. But I'm just saying, you know what I mean? This is not an individual
mean-
buying an individual bottle. I'm buying something for resale, and that includes, everything that goes into.
But other people are selling this, small businesses, and they're not $5. They're $1.69, $1.79, somewhere in there. And, so it isn't that much more expensive. And I don't know about the
From what my
boxes. I'm not real
research is so
interested in
far,
drinking out of the box.
I would have to pay, from my research so far, which is limited, I will admit, this is just the beginning stages.
Yeah.
But from my research so far, if I had to buy a case of them, they would be over $1 each to me. So that's just what I found so far. I'd be very interested if they find choices.
So this, do you mind?
Please do.
So this we sell at the Superette for 79 cents. Okay, now that's my markup. I bought this at the corner store in Orleans for $2.45. So I don't know what their markup is and if they're raking people or what, but that's 20 cents versus 5. So there is quite an increase, but there is hope in the future because I'm working with Coke, Pepsi, Polar. Aquafina's coming out in March in cans, and we will be able to sell 24 packs of cans as well as 12 packs of cans because we've sold over 1,000 24 packs of water bottles last year. But if we have something at least that we can sell, that'll be great, and maybe their price will be cheaper than whoever these people are that I contacted to see if I could become a client, and they still don't care. So, yeah, so let's hope there is,
Yeah.
things moving
I have a feeling if you looked at what a can of their soda cost in that cooler too, it's a lot more than you charge out of your cooler.
But,
since it's-
and I'd like to say, as a retailer, I had no trouble at all with the plastic and marine hazards. I was fine. I voted for that last town meeting, but it was the others. And I appreciate that you've listened to us and are concerned. And sounds like you're just, and, so I appreciate that. And I also find nip bottles on the side of the road. I also sell nip bottles. So I pick them up, we recycle them. Unfortunately, not everyone takes responsibility for their own behaviors, you know? And there isn't something that we could sell in place of it. And maybe someday soon, just like Coke is doing, maybe we'll have aluminum cans. That would be super. But it is a personal behavior, and, you know, I don't want to be that person, but we sold over 200,000 in Eastham last year between our 2 licenses. Wow. And so we aren't finding a super large amount. I would assume we don't actually have numbers on that, but yeah, if we can do something to help, we are more than happy to.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you very much. That was really helpful. And, you know, I do think that it kind of speaks to the fact that this board is here to listen to everybody, the residents and the small businesses, and that's part of it. And sometimes that voice doesn't get totally heard, so that's why I'm really glad this is happening tonight and folks are here and they're speaking. You know, this has been going on for a while. It would have been nice to get more feedback on the earlier end of things, but I'm glad it's happening nonetheless. So, you know, we're here to listen to everybody. So thank you for speaking.
And if I may say, I think, you know, certainly I've learned a lesson in terms of public engagement, which in my 22-year career in municipal government, you'd think that I would know everything there is to know about municipal engagement, but I don't. So I am still learning, you guys, and we will reach out better. We just have to reach out better. We are doing this in the winter with a lot of lead time trying. I know it's only 3 or 4 months, but that's the lead time that we grapple with a lot of things going into town meeting. So I apologize. We will reach out better in the future.
Hi, Susan Knight, 115 Squanto Road. So this is a tough conversation for me because I'm a small business owner. I sell a lot of single-serve beverages. I also hate plastic, personally. Plastic straws have been banned in my household for a long time. Plastic single-use cups have been banned in my household for a long time. Just to try to add a little, you know, I won't go on too much, but my daughter, who helps me manage my small business, has a Instagram site called The Path to Plasticlessness. She and her husband, who also help me run the store, are millennials on there, and they preach a lot. And I agree with a lot of what they say. What we've done is we've introduced a lot of options, and I want to talk a little bit about that is what I see my role as a small business person, is to provide options to consumers. We introduced paper straws, but we did not get rid of plastic straws. We have both options, and I would say it's about a 2-to-1. The people took the paper versus the plastic. We introduced 2 different types of water this year that were not in plastic. This one that you keep pulling up, the aluminum one, and this one in a cardboard box. I did not find the prices to be 6 times, so I'm going to throw a little bit, you know, I did not find that to be the case. We took a bit of a margin hit because we're a little preachy, and we wanted more people to buy these just because we wanted them to. Than this one. We make a lot more money on this one. We priced these under, they were both priced under $2 at our store. But we didn't make as much money on them as we did this one. But again, my role here is to provide tourists coming into this town, and of course everybody in the town, but you know, to somebody else's point earlier, we really live on that money in July and August. They are not going to be prepared. I agree with somebody else, they're not going to be prepared. I have my little container with me wherever I go, but they're not going to be ready for that. They're going to walk in, and I'm just thinking about my staff on the front lines of this, you know, dealing with angry people who, whether we like it or not, they want those plastic bottles. And I support, honestly, and some of my fellow retailers may not agree with me, if there's a Cape-wide ban, I'm all for it. If there's a multi-town ban, sign me up. I'm there. I think it's high time, and I think that, I'm not going to get on the greenwashing bandwagon either. I think, honestly, a lot of this is greenwashing. And I think we have to be careful of that. It's about single use, period. End of story, whether it's in plastic or glass or aluminum or whatever. But I also make a lot of money there, you know, so it's a double-edged sword for me. But if everybody does it, if Wellfleet does it, if Orleans does it, if everybody does it, sign me up. But to single out the town of Eastham, when all these other businesses are right next door to me, we actually talked about it, me and my daughter and my son-in-law. Can we not sell plastic water bottles this year? Can we eliminate it from our store? And we talked about it, and we just said it would be suicide. We just can't do it. The market's not ready, the consumers are not ready. They will get there. Everybody will get there. This conversation is happening, but to single out our little small businesses in Eastham to bear the brunt of it, while around us, you know, the Shaws and the Stop and Shops are going to pick up, and they're going to pick up their cases of water on their way out. That's what's going to happen, and we're going to end up losing. So everybody gets on board. I'm on board. In the meantime, you know, let's give options to our customers. Let's put everything out there that we can. I do have a lot of questions on the other ban that I have to say I'm a little late to the party. We eliminated plastic bags a long time ago, so I didn't even pay attention to that bylaw, quite frankly. We've never had styrofoam in our store, so I've never paid attention to that bylaw. I am a little concerned about some of the other things in there. I'm mostly in grab and go. There is no substitute for a clear plastic container if you were trying to convince a consumer to buy something off the shelf.
No, there is actually.
Oh, not, okay.
The bylaw covers polystyrene, and polyethylene is still allowed.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the little clear one.
The little clear.
Is polyethylene.
Yeah.
Heavier duty.
Okay, that's good. Then I feel better. Because I hate them, by the way. I also hate those, but it is what it is at this point. And the biodegradable ones are greenwashing, in my personal opinion. So
Because you need, and
because there's nowhere to do it.
Right, you need
There's nowhere to compost it.
industrial composting, which is another thing we need to really talk about, getting maybe a regional
That would be terrific.
composting, because that's most of our solid waste.
And I will point out that I took a little ride around town today and noticed some major retailer, who shall go unnamed, national retailer, doesn't even have a recycling bin outside their own building.
Yeah.
And you walk in there, and there is nothing but plastic wall to wall. And they don't have a recycling bin, not one in their whole complex. So I'd love to address that as well at some point. And that's all.
All right, thank you very much, Susan. I'm glad I caught you this morning. She was at the clerk's office. And I said, oh, are you coming to the meeting tonight? And so, thank you for coming.
I'm Ken Tabor. I'm with the Hole in One group in Eastham and in New Orleans. Yes, I live in Eastham along with my wife and her 4 sisters, who are all Eastham residents. We raised our kids in Eastham, Nauset School. Being a business owner, and I commend another business owner and a number of you that have shown interest in eradicating plastic. We're all about it. We're all about it, but unfortunately, we're dealing with manufacturers, distributors that aren't there yet, and we have to contend with what our customers want and what the town wants and who's banning what and what the consumer wants. It's a challenge. It's a really tough challenge for us, because as a business owner, our brain thinks, what does the customer want? That's how our brain thinks. If they want a cupcake this way or this way, that's what we do. If they want coffee this way or that way, that's what we do. We customize everything. But when bans come into place and we're forced to do a certain thing, it goes against everything we do. Because, as we heard, consumers are looking for what they want. And if we can't provide what they want, they will go somewhere else and get that. Because that's what they do. So I want to congratulate the Select Board for considering businesses. I want to thank you for listening to the letters that were given to you, hearing the feedback from the business community, because as a business owner in Eastham, I'm begging you to get us involved with anything that's coming up against you. Whatever is presented to you, what is ever asked of you, please consider the business community, because we're doing it because I own a business because I want to provide to my family. I want to have financial stability. But I also want to give back to the community. I want our company to generate enough money, profits, whatever, so we can get back to Nauset and any other nonprofits. If anything impends or disrupts that, it's going to have an adverse effect. It will. Every community depends on their business community to supply and to support and to give. So Orleans went through this last year, folks. We had to get rid of the styrofoam cups. We had to get rid of the plastic bags. We had to get rid of everything that was polystyrene. It wasn't a hardship. It was not. All I had to do is move whatever I had down to Eastham. Now,
use it up, Ken.
Taking it in, I got 26,000 styrofoam cups that I have to get rid of. Now, I went to Orleans Health Department and I asked Bob Canning, what am I going to do with 26,000 styrofoam cups that I ordered a year and a half ago with a private print that I had to order to make sure I get that as a business owner? What am I going to do with it? Now, what he said, take it to the landfill. Now, I'm going to ask you all.
Yeah, that's.
If you can give me an option or a solution to that problem, I'm all ears.
How many cups of coffee do you sell in a summer?
It's going to take me about a year to get through those 26,000 cups because they're 20-ounce cups. They're not 16-ounce. Exactly. So I have a 12-ounce paper, I have a 16-ounce styrofoam, and I have a 20-ounce styrofoam. In Orleans, I went out and got cases upon cases of 20-ounce paper in Orleans, because that's all I can serve, and 16-ounce. But in the warehouse at Reinhardt, one of our food service distributors, I'm sitting on 53 cases of these.
Can you return them?
No, because they have my name on it.
Custom logo.
So the answer that I'm getting is that I'm SOL.
No, you just gotta get through it in 6 months.
Correct. 2 for 1, give it away, give coffee away, give everything I can. And that's what we're going to have to come up with. But as a business owner, as everyone knows, as a business owner, we have to be creative because not everyone has to take on this burden that's in this room. We, as business owners, have to take this burden on. It's no one's problem. And whatever it costs, whether it's $5,300 worth of styrofoam cups, there's no one else in this room that has to worry about that. But I'm just letting you know, I believe in eradicating styrofoam. I believe in getting rid of polystyrene. But understand, it's a burden that's placed on a small business owner. So as you go through this process, which I support, I'm not going to say I don't support it, because I commend you for listening to all the comments that you heard. But somehow there's a petition that's coming out that concerns me, and we'll deal with that with the owners and business community. We have to come up with a solution, and we have to work with we have to work with you guys. We have to work with what we have to deal with. Thank you for considering this in the last hour, but I just want to make sure that we take care of our waters, estuaries, ponds, every creature within those waters are taken care of. I get it. And I think that everyone that's in this room gets it. We don't need to be preached to. We don't need to be spoken to. We don't have to be explained to. But please be considerate what it takes certain individuals to make it happen. It's not just sitting at home and saying, hey, let's do this. So please, I appreciate everyone's time. I didn't want to go any further. It's a long meeting. We heard a lot of things today. Thank you very much. I appreciate everything you heard.
Thank you, Ken.
try to be very brief. I'm Deborah Ullman. I live on Kingsbury Beach Road and have for off and on for 66 years. I really love my fellow business people in this town. I'm a consumer, and I try to buy things in Eastham when I can. I also am incredibly grateful, having been one of the petition submitters last year at town meeting, to the conservation people for the research they did to come up with the suggestions they're making. I just want to say one quick word in advocacy for education, because I think this is like a really vivid time for us to be learning how to do things differently. And there's a lot of work, a lot of burden involved in that learning process. And I had the chance to be with some high school students today at Nauset, and they are so inspiring in terms of their whole ground game is different from that of so many others of us. But this can be a tourist destination plus if we are plastics cleaner or clean. And I think that we start attracting a whole different quality of visitors if we have that reputation. So,
Thank you, thank you. Just wanted to make a quick comment. Ken Tabor mentioned about, the business community contributing to things in the town. And you look at any event that we have in the town, and you'll see the names of a lot of the business owners here that support those. It's none of the the big brand name corporate places that do all that contributing. It's the small businesses. So we really value, all of you in contributing. So thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and don't see anyone else wishing to speak, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion and just talk about the issue quickly amongst ourselves and talk about some next steps going forward. Jamie?
I'll get started. So I guess we'll talk about the plastic bags topic that came up. And I do think it makes a lot of sense to either have no plastic bags. I don't see the reasoning with going with the thickness. I'm having trouble.
So
wrapping
you're
it right
you're
now.
for removing the thickness. Anyone else have a general comment or consensus on that? Okay. All right, so that's something, and we can talk about amending in that bylaw. Any other?
I got a question.
Yes.
It's actually for Jim or Karen, but the penalties, the
Mm.
$200 or $500 sounds excessive, but how is that applied? I mean, is that, if you catch me with a bottle?
No, it's
or
selling.
Is that from the?
It's selling them
the
or
sales?
distributing, right. It's sales and distribution. It's
Okay.
not purchasing.
Okay.
In my opinion, a fine's only as good as the enforcement.
Right.
So I'd rather not put a fine unless it's feasible, and we haven't heard from any enforcement in that regard, or have we?
I think generally speaking, our enforcement agents warn. They warn, they caution, they give notice. So I don't anticipate that retailers, A, are going to go against the regulations, because I think we have some really responsible retailers and restaurant owners, and a lot of them are switching over to these products on their own without us interfering in it. So I'm not worried about that. I think when Susie comes to do an annual inspection, if she sees something, she's going to say, hey, this isn't allowed anymore. You might want to, and, go from there. But I think a bylaw without a penalty is not useful. So we have to have a penalty, but I think everyone can understand that most of the time we're going to be educating and warning as opposed to fining. I can't remember the last time we issued a ticket fine for a restaurant or a retailer.
Jamie?
I guess I'm just curious how the board feels as far as the enforcement dates, when those are going to begin. I guess coming to the meeting tonight, my initial thoughts were, this has been, pretty much on the docket for a year now, and going, selling product and knowing how many bags you have to have in back stock. I know, in my mind, a year is pretty good. After the meeting tonight, I guess maybe I'm curious how the board feels about that, if we think that maybe a year isn't enough, if we should push it and keep it at a later date.
I agree with Jamie.
Give Ken his full year to get rid of his cups.
The cups.
Maybe he could give out little potted plants in them or something.
I agree with Jamie. It sounds to me like there's, you know, there's a need for more time from
Yeah.
that's what I'm.
If we gave it maybe another summer to the 2021.
That's about all. I'd be willing to push it, because I do think that, I think that there's been a lot of, this has been out there for almost a year now, and this has been going on nationally and globally for much longer than that. So I don't know if this is, it's time, it's coming, but I also am hearing what everybody's saying, and I don't want to pin anybody with cups.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I've been a small business owner myself in town here, and I appreciate the financial constraints of seasonal business and the burden and, that these type of things can do on a company where pennies matter. So I'd be reluctant to not give pre-existing businesses more time to dwindle down their stock and do better research as far as price comparison and what other options are out there. And I know that the town's providing, working on a list, or the Conscom, Karen, is working on a list of alternatives. But, like some of the business owners said, if some of those alternatives are at a price cost that's going to make it ineffective, so to speak, then it's a moot point to have alternatives that cost so much that you can't use them. So I want to give people enough time to, to get their ducks in a row, and so to speak. It's my take on it.
The language Al used about the pre-existing business too, I think, can we keep that, so if a new business were to come into town,
They would have to fly out the gate, since they wouldn't have
because I wouldn't want
backstock
a
to
new
get
business
rid
to
of.
come into
Yeah,
town
but
and
why
invest in plastic
So we're
bags. and
punishing
then-
new businesses, though.
I just would be nervous that a new business, I mean, if you're starting a new business, why would you want to buy 50,000 styrofoam cups? No,
You wouldn't, and I think that's the thing about this room full of people, is that if I were a business owner, I would start to use my stock, and I would start to think, what are the next steps? And we would start planning. So you'd think that they would start integrating those new products as quickly as they could, right? So if you give them more time, my sense is they will use that time to, transition over. And
So we've heard that
But I
everyone's
don't
in
think-
agreement.
yeah, I don't think-
Agreement that this is a good,
I don't
this
think
is
if
the way
we-
it's going to go, moving towards the future. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't need
punishing
more
a
time.
new business that's just starting out would, I don't know if that
I don't think
would-
it's punish is the
Yeah,
right word.
Because I think we still have the same date of implementation, if we say November 2020.
Yeah.
That
Legally, I
it's,
think you
legally,
have to
that's when it starts. But we're not going to fine you
Until.
until November 2021, November 1st.
Yeah, enforcement starts at a certain time.
Right, but
Oh, that's
you'll, maybe
interesting.
on inspection, with the health department or whoever's doing the inspection, they could point out that, this is actually prohibited now. There's a grace period, there's no fine, but we're telling you that this is going to go away. So
Interesting.
it's,
Okay.
it's, yeah, it's a little more time to get rid of product that
I
they
like
may
that.
have, so. All right. All right, anything else on that marine hazard bylaw? No? All right, so with those changes, bring that back and we'll then consider it for placement on the
Final
warrant.
draft.
The final draft. It's all right.
The enforcement date would be January 1st, 2022, or November 1st?
Yeah, I think give it a year past the
2020, November 1st, 2020.
2020 is the
2020 is the start date for when
Start
it goes
date.
into effect, and then the year after
Fines.
would be November 1st, 2021.
Right,
for
that's when
fines,
the fines.
And delete the bag thickness
Out.
entirely.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're also going to delete some of those, if you don't mind, some of those bag descriptions that no
Yes.
longer apply, and just
Yes,
clean that
please.
part up a bit?
Yeah,
Okay.
That
just
would
to
be great.
tighten it up and make it
Okay.
clearer, yeah.
And then that would hopefully be the final draft that we consider for placement on the warrant.
if you're coming back, it would be good if you brought a sample of each item that's being prohibited or banned, whichever you, and put them up there on the, so we could all see, because I'm not sure if everybody is aware of what's being affected here.
Or we could take pictures
That
and
might
put
be
them
a
on the-
good town meeting
Maybe photos,
Yeah.
yep.
display or presentation
Well, it's kind
also.
of late.
Well, no, that's when it's voted on.
Okay, we were thinking
So-
that maybe there would be another public presentation between now and the bylaw, the vote,
The
rather,
vote,
the
at town meeting.
where
yeah.
we might
Well, there'll
have-
be pre-town meeting also,
Yeah,
and,
where we might be able to show more of the stuff,
Perfect.
talk more
Yeah.
about the different pricing and other things that
So
are here, and
we
provide
generally-
as much support as possible. That's good. Sorry.
We generally have a meeting to go through the warrant articles, so you'd have that opportunity, and then we'll have a pre-town meeting where we'll go through all the warrant
So
articles.
we'll talk about
so
what.
there'll be
Yeah.
two more
'cause I-
opportunities.
Yeah, okay. I do have samples of water products already,
Okay, great,
and we showed some on Wednesday, but, yeah.
super. All right, everyone pretty much in agreement on that one?
Yeah.
Al?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment that this many folks coming out for this is great. And there's a lot of stuff that was brought up in public comment here, and I would invite everybody to come to all our meetings and bring this stuff up. Honestly, I mean, as far as the, the
Who
Trex, the Trex stuff, we're gonna look into that. There's stuff that's come to light that makes sense from both points of view. And East Ham's a place where different point of views can come together and respect each other and come up with a solution that works best for the community. And I want to thank everybody that came out for this particular hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then now onto the bottle one. So my original thought for, a recommendation was to drop the plastic beverage bottle bylaw and really support the Cape-wide really effort to ban bottled water. And how does everybody feel about that? And we can either just go on recommendation supporting theirs, or we can sort of substitute it for the one that the commission worked on. We could have both on the warrant, I mean, it will be on, theirs will be on no matter what. It's already been submitted. What do you think?
I feel torn.
Yeah.
Because, I guess, at town meeting, you're going to have your residents voting. And to me, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. They're going to vote in favor of a ban if it's on the warrant. They don't have a lot to lose. This is only a gain for a resident that doesn't own a small business in town, that's without a doubt, eliminate plastic bottles. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And then there's the small business side that I really feel for, because I do get it. It takes time. And until the entire Cape is on board, it can be devastating for a business. It's also part of why I like the idea of it being a townwide ban, because it forces all the bigger stores to comply, which is why it's so important that towns like Orleans comply also with this. Because when those bigger stores aren't on board, it's going to crush smaller businesses. But if the towns tell them, this is what you have to do, it puts everybody back on that level playing field, and that's what I want to move forward with. So I guess I feel like I want to see this board's approach to be that, a way that we can get to a level playing field, the best way to get to a level playing field.
Well, maybe it's just let the petition article go forward instead of adopting our own. But we can put them together.
Can I make a suggestion? That instead of, since you're torn and you don't want it to go into effect when the other towns have not, that perhaps we adopt their language into our bylaw with the emergency provisions we've discussed, and put in a clause that says it won't go into effect until a certain number of other towns already have passed it as well.
I don't know if, I don't think that would work, because it's not a number of towns. Like, you could have like
Or
3.
specific towns.
Or from,
It won't go into effect unless our neighbors on either side have.
can I ask that, which towns haven't you submitted in yet? And do you plan to? Yes, yeah.
I have to answer it with one more sentence. So last year, we did the municipal single-use plastic bottle ban that was a municipal ban. We filed in 11 towns, we passed in those 11, so the remaining 4 are using the municipal ban right now. So those remaining 4 are Truro, Mashpee, Bourne, and the town of Barnstable. And we have spoken to Barnstable, and the city council or the town council is working on a municipal ban. We have the municipal ban filed in Mashpee, and it's also going to be in Truro. We are working with Truro, since there's such a small community, to also see if they would be willing to do the commercial ban this year. I just had a conversation last week. With regard to surrounding towns to Eastham, Wellfleet has it on their town meeting warrant, Provincetown, Orleans, Harwich, Brewster, Chatham. So I don't think Truro would be a major competitor. So from that perspective, I'm not saying that lightly, I'm just saying honestly, if we're able to pass in those other towns, specifically Harwich and Orleans, I think that would serve you very well. I will say this much, from last year, Orleans was unanimous with regard to the vote in favor of the municipal ban. The Board of Selectmen did not even want to see us in terms of meeting with us about the article. We forced our way there to do it during the open period, excuse me, I don't know what to call it, open comment period. And they voted unanimously at that point, when typically at open comment period, no votes were taken.
Wow.
So at that time, they also made the remark, now things change in a year, we all know that, but I would only imagine, given the news that we've seen, that the change would be almost more in favor, but they wanted a more comprehensive ban at that time. And it's a matter of public record, so I feel no uncomfort telling you that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So maybe Karen's, suggestion, we wouldn't necessarily have to do that if all these other towns around us. Now, timing, you said Wellfleet's ahead of us, town meeting, and is Provincetown?
No, it's Falmouth. Falmouth starts off, and Falmouth is a really big town. That's April 13th. Wellfleet's April 27th. But if I could just, our ban article is specific to September 1, 2021. And the reason why I bring that up is if you're looking at consistent language amongst all your bans, maybe perhaps even for the article you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
May I ask a question? So on our plastic beverage bottle bylaw, were you saying earlier that you are going to reduce that, the scope of that to just water bottles, no carbonated beverages?
We'd certainly be willing to do that.
Okay.
Because that seems to be what the feedback.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, basically what's been
And
proposed
no
in the.
nips, no nips, no, okay.
We didn't.
But I think Jamie's right, though, as far as what we put forth to the voters. I think leaving maybe the petitioned article on, I mean, we don't really have a choice. And the only thing we add is the marine bylaw.
And that
from
puts us on the same level as every other town.
Right.
Yeah, because the process is, of course, it goes, if it passes at town meeting, then it goes to the Attorney General's office. That takes 4 to 6 months anyway. So they will write to the Select Board and say, we either accept the vote of town meeting, and this is a legal bylaw, or they'll say, we find a legal problem in the article, and you will have to revote it again with different language. So it's not a done deal with a bylaw like this. It really, consistency is important. So we can just send it all to town council too, as we move forward with the warrant and see.
I just think having multiple ones might be a little confusing.
confusing.
If they're too similar.
I just had a quick question. You were saying just water, not soda bottles? Is that what you're?
Well, right, basically substituting the petitioned article in for the plastic.
Oh.
But I think that would be too confusing to have
Yeah.
two similar ones on the warrant, a petition one and the town one. We can always just move theirs up so it's right after the other one too, so they're together, instead of at the end of the warrant like we usually do for petitioned articles, but.
Sorry, I guess I'm a little stuck, and I hate to backtrack because I know this is taking long, but I want to make sure we do it right.
No.
So this article would ban single-use water bottles, but not soda.
Correct.
Okay. I didn't hear one person mention soda tonight.
No, it was discussed, I think, Wednesday.
That was, okay, that was at the Wednesday meeting? Okay.
from the letters that they're upset.
Yes, I do see that in the letters, but, okay, all right.
And, they already have a deposit, so there's already less. I think
Okay.
probably most of the soda bottles you see on the beaches have washed up from somewhere else. I think people are pretty good about, well, maybe not,
But, okay.
generally, I think they're pretty good about taking out what they bring in. All right, so we pretty good with going forward with just the one bylaw at this time and getting some changes made and then seeing a final draft fairly soon. And then the other one, let go as the petitioned article. And then we get to decide later how our recommendation falls on that one.
And I welcome more letters and more emails and more feedback from people. I mean, this isn't a final
More
decision
ideas on what,
Yeah.
what to do, so. All right. So we'll move on. We'll give you time if you want to leave to clear out. So thank you, everyone, again, for coming.
Thank you.
Still here.
Yeah. So Peter, I think we're going to pass over that for tonight, the community preservation charge, if that's all right?
Dan was going to do it.
Oh, okay.
Where's everyone going?
We're going to go
We can straighten it out.
put plants in Ken's little pots in there.
Hey, Karen.
Kind of our de
Well, just
facto
think
here.
of it this way.
If you could please move outside, we have a lot of business to continue with, please.
I have to be here for the meeting next Monday anyway. You want me to just do it? Or do you want to come in?
I have some.
I can clean it
Yeah,
up.
I know. They haven't even called them
I
themselves.
have it. I got it on my computer.
I have some comments about it.
Yeah, well, you're around. Yeah, and I'm not seeing Wednesday anyway.
Anyways,
All right,
I don't see how half of them have the finance commission.
you're on the mic.
I can tell that's what I'm saying.
Well,
I just want some clarification.
Okay, everyone, if you want to keep talking, if you could please move outside into the hallway, that'd be great.
no.
Not gonna get
Be there, but hasn't. Well, that's a problem with them.
No, he's here. He's behind the pole. He's in the good seats out there. All right. So we're going to move on to the, I guess the Finance Committee hasn't called themselves to order yet. Sorry.
I'd like to call the Board of Finance to order, please. Everything okay? Everybody agree at 5-0?
Let's roll. Right.
All right. We're going to skip the community preservation charge for tonight and move on to the department budget. No. Any other night.
The next time Peter's before us, which will be when he discusses the CPA articles.
Next Monday.
Next Monday?
But I'm not the chair anymore. Dan Koppelman's the chair.
All right, so first, department budget presentation. We'll start with the fire department. Thank you for sitting through that. Oh, it's good, it's all good. And look, they all left.
Is
Stayed for
interested in the
theirs.
$30 million budget, okay?
What's important?
This is something to consider.
Questions?
Thank you. Everybody, they ask it every year.
I understand that, but it's just, doesn't make any sense to me.
I have to say, I appreciate the questions from the Finance Committee
Yeah.
coming ahead of time, because a lot of times we've had where, we have the fire department, police department in, and they get fired at all these questions, and they sort of scramble to get information back to us or try to answer on the fly. And so for good or bad, it's nice to have them up front, so thank you.
Okay, thank you for having me, Ken Paramacott, Fire Chief. I'm going to try to give you the quick version here because we're running so late. I have a PowerPoint presentation I want to show tonight, which I think is the most important part of this this budget that I want to go through, so I'm going to skip through it pretty quick. But the first question that was given to me, overtime rising or falling, and the plans to reduce overtime. Overtime continues to grow, and one of the reasons is a basic COLA. You take a basic COLA raise, and you multiply it out times their overtime rate, and an average COLA raise of 2% for me adds $10,000 to $12,000 to my overtime budget needed to sustain the same amount of business I did the year before. So that's a continuation. I have costs associated with injuries. I'm having a bad year this year. The last 2 years, I gave money back in my overtime. This year, I'm having a bad year. I've had somebody out on a medical leave for the month of July and August, which is huge for me. I had a medical leave for one of my senior people that ended up being a 6-month medical leave from July until January 1st. And I had a person leave to take another job in another department that left in July. During this whole process, I tried to hire as soon as I could to fill these positions because the need is so great during that time. I think we had 5 postings, either 5 or 6 postings of hiring people, unable to get people to take the jobs. I'll go into it a little later on why. You know, it's very puzzling to me. When I came on back in the early days of the 80s, I had 82 people competing for my job as a fireman. 82 people. Now you can't get somebody to put in for a job. So we'll talk about that a little bit. The new people that we brought on 4 years ago, they're coming into their training cycles where all their mandatory EMS, DOTs, all that stuff. So we did not add to the budget to bring those up, so those are all coming in. We have more demands on us by the EMS system. We do what is called M&M rounds, or medical rounds that we have to do. They're increasing them from 2 a year to 4 a year. That adds $4,000 to my budget, just that one mandated change in the medical rounds. We've taken on Stop the Bleeding. We've taken on surf rescue training. No additional funding was given to us. We've taken all that, and we've done it. I have one of my senior members that I left was my technical rescue person that was part of the Barnstable County Technical Rescue Team. He left. I'm in the process of training one of my firefighters now for long term, so I can have him. He's the only representative we have down here. There's hundreds of hours involved in that, so we've taken that in. The one thing I want to tell you, overtime makes money for us. Okay, and if you look at my numbers from when we hired the new people 2 years ago, and the amount of ambulance revenue we've taken in, because I have those new people, and because I can backfill the overtime and provide the service to the people that they required on town meeting floor, I'm making more money. We made $750,000 this year in ambulance revenue. I want $100,000. The deputy took on a special Medicare reimbursement that not a lot of people are doing. It's very involved with paperwork with our billing companies and all that, but we took in $95,000 extra this year. So $750,000 this year we returned back in the ambulance revenue. So to make money, I have to invest money, and to cover the safety of the people in the town and cover the safety of the people I work with, I need to keep those shifts full. And that's the only way we can do it. Like I said, the last 2 years I've given back overtime money and I've given back expense money. So I think Administrator Beebe and Administrator Lorenko will tell you, I pay close attention to my budget, and I watch every dime that I spend, and I'm in their offices all the time checking my numbers against theirs. So I think we're doing a good job. You'll see the ambulance revenue handout shortly here. We'll talk about mutual aid shortly here. We are one of the big providers of mutual aid at this end of the Cape. We are a staff department. These other departments are struggling. We're going to talk about the ladder truck in a little while. Why aren't I going to buy a used ladder truck and refurb it? I checked with the Wellfleet chief the other day. I said, why did you go for a used ladder? You know, there's a lot of controversy. We can talk about it. He says, because I got to go for 5 new members of my department to be able to get my second ambulance on the road to maintain and be able to do the job. He says, I couldn't go for $1 million ladder truck. He said, I had to kind of, you know, put it in the background and get something just to get me by, but I need to get 5 members to be able to do the job that we're doing here. So I think we're doing a real good job with that. If you look at my overtime comparison sheet, you can see the last 2018, I gave back almost $57,000 in overtime. Last year, I gave back $7,000 in overtime, and that's with COLA increases. So I have cut back. This year, like I said, I am in trouble. I've had all these vacancies, I've had to fill them. I talked to Administrator Beebe in September and told her, in September, I know I'm gonna have problems. So, we'll see how it breaks out with some leftover salary and whatnot. Hopefully, we can make up the deficit there, but you can see what we've been doing. If you look at, and this is the greatest thing, I compare myself on the department overtime comparison with other towns. If you look at FY19, I compare myself very closely to the town of Orleans, same amount of personnel, one station. I did the job for $443,000, they were $632,000. Okay, so I really think that we're doing a good job controlling our overtime, and we're really providing the service. That second ambulance is available to get out the door. I held to my promise, I'm gonna hold to my promise that we keep that going.
Chief, excuse me?
Yes.
On the sheet before, for 2020, the money spent, 308,048, that's through when? How many months of the year is that?
Which are you on the?
The sheet before, where you show that to date.
On 2020, that was probably mid-January.
Through mid-January.
Through mid-January. Right now, I am $80,000 behind where I was last year at this time. That doesn't take into account the boost in the overtime budget or anything else. I am $80,000 behind. Last week was my first payroll that I was under where I was last year, and that was because I just got my last firefighter working, and I'm back to normal now, and things are leveled off. But last payroll was my first payroll since July 1st that I've gotten back to normal. So, and it's all personnel. It's all being able to keep those shifts full. So.
I have a question, too.
Yes.
You talked about having a trouble finding people, as compared to 82 who applied, and now you can't find anybody.
Right.
What's happening with the other towns?
Can we talk about, I got another, there's another question down there about that. We'll jump into that there, and I'll show you exactly what's going on. Anybody else on the overtime issue, any questions, so we can?
I got one question.
Yes.
On the big budget here, it shows the FY19 actual as being 203,000, but on your sheet it's 443. Big difference.
Which number?
Where are we now?
Peter, what page are you on, please?
We're on, in the budget book, page 58. And then I'm also looking at Kent's sheet on question 1 where he showed the overtime comparison. 451.
Oh, you're talking about FY19's number?
Yeah, FY19.
Yeah, that's a mistake by us, because
you,
we
yeah.
split out overtime over multiple categories, and that's just one category.
All right.
Yeah.
So I gotta fix that number, Peter. It should be what he has there.
Okay.
Yeah, we broke that down, and you people requested that a few years ago, that we break the overtime
Yeah,
down.
that's
There's a
great.
pie chart that shows how we distribute the overtime.
I didn't put all the
coming up. so.
Okay.
I didn't realize.
Are we good to move on to the next?
Yep.
All
That's a
right.
good question.
The next one is staffing. We talked about how our shifts work. We work 24-hour shifts. There are 5 members to a shift, and it's covered 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. If you see my little chart there, and it's so difficult to explain, it's better to do it in a picture. Our summer staffing, June through September, we maintain 5 people on duty 24 hours a day. When an ambulance goes out, the designation with the 3 firefighters there, that leaves 2 in the station. If you go down to the next block below, we hire 1 back to keep 3 available for that next ambulance or that fire truck. So that's during our busy season. And can I say busy season? Because we have days in January and February that we're doing 5 and 6 runs a day too. So it's very hard to say what busy season is today. The other one is the off season. We maintain 4. So we still have 5 on duty, but we allow 1 to drop down, and we don't hire back to fill that position. So if 3 go out the door on an ambulance call, it leaves 1 in the station. I hire back 2 to keep the 3 available for that next ambulance call or that fire truck.
Chief, when you say hire back, you mean bring them back on
Overtime. We will,
Overtime.
yeah, we'll drop a tone. They have a system on who's on coverage, and we'll drop a tone that will say we need 2 for station coverage, and if they're on that system for the day, they'll call in if they want it. And if not, the next group will call in when they retone it out. So that is done with overtime, yes. The organizational chart is on the next page here. It just shows where everybody falls into line there and who our firefighter, EMT, paramedics are. And on the next page is the pie chart. The pie chart pretty much shows what's going on. I gave you the pie chart for last July to 12/31 of this year, and behind that is the previous year. You can see that shift coverage on the 2019 one is 148 for that 6-month period. If you go to 18, you can see, and it's under fire department overtime there, it's at 98,000. You can see the difference there where I've had these vacancies, where I've had to fill in to fill these shifts. So that pretty much tells you where our overtime is split up into.
Question.
Yes?
When the three that have gone out in the first run, when they come back, what happens to the 2 people you hired?
They're released.
Pardon?
They're released.
They're released.
They go home or wherever they came from.
So they only be an hour.
I'm sorry?
They may only be a couple hours then.
You know, the
there a
average medical
minimum?
run for us is over 2 hours.
Okay.
Up and back to the hospital, so the 3-hour window is pretty normal. That's pretty much the hours that they end up being there.
So that's the minimum 3 hours that they get when they come back?
3 hours, yes, and on a fire alarm, it's only 2 hours, if we have to bring them back for an automatic fire alarm. Any other questions on that? The next question was, hold on a sec here, lost employees. Yes, I lost one of my new hires in July. She went to the town of Howard. Her reason why she left was housing. She was trying to buy a home up here. She was originally from Brewster. I really tried when I hired those people to hire local people. We pretty much stayed between Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, and Brewster. I hired one from off Cape. But we tried staying pretty close. I have a great problem in competing, as all of my other fellow fire chiefs do, with hiring. I cannot compete with the Hyannis Fire Department. I cannot compete with COM Fire Department, which is Centerville, Osterville, Marston's Mills, and any of those districts up here. Here's the example. COM just posted for a hiring for a firefighter EMT at $70,000 start, okay? Our starting is $52,400, all right? They're at 90/10 on their insurance. The town pays 90%, the employee pays 10%. We are at 65/35. If you put those two figures together, the starting figure and the savings on insurance, it's a $23,000 starting bonus for them to go to work up there. And what else about up there? Housing is cheap. So that's why we have and I'm talking my brother fire chiefs from Brewster down. Orleans, they had a vacancy for a year. They couldn't fill because they couldn't get anybody. So how hard is it to compete against that? It's extremely hard. So housing is one thing, but the compensation that they're receiving down there, and I'm going to tell you, it's always been that way. When I started first thing on the job, they always made more money in Hyannis and COM and all that stuff. It just depended where you wanted to live and, you know, where you put your dedication to. And back in my era, you kind of stayed where you were and you dedicated to where you were, and you said, yeah, they make more money, but, you know, we're doing okay here. Those days are gone in a lot of cases. Yes?
Quick question. Has the insurance number shifted since you've started, or has that been pretty consistent too, the insurance coverage?
When I started here,
Yeah.
it was $35.65. When I left Howard, it was $25.75. And don't quote me on this, but I think back in the day, it was 100% almost up in the district. Some of the districts were 100%. If you stayed with an HMO, there was some kind of catch-in. If you stayed with an HMO, the town paid 100%. Yeah. So we realize we can't compete with that, but the pool is just out there, and I know like Hyannis Fire is adding large amounts of people because they're so busy, and I think they're hiring 4 a year for like 3 years, and the people are going that way. So
Question, how does our pay compare to the local towns around here?
we're in the ballpark. We're all pretty close. Yep, we're all pretty close.
Mary, we're shooting for, in the reclassification a few years ago, and we've been shooting to be above the median. So we don't want to be under the median. We don't want to be the highest paying either. We just want to be in the 60, 70 range. And we keep falling behind, and then we have to,
Catch up.
I think salaries right now are, the competition is amazing. And so each time we raise ourselves up, like this past year, another
Somebody
town
else-
settles a contract and they raise up. So that's
Constantly
that's what's
trying to keep
happening.
up.
It's difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and the people we are holding on to are the people from here. The people that are KPs, the people that lived in Eastham, Truro, whatever, that want to stay here. Those are the people that are, saying, yeah, I'm gonna make a little bit less money, but I want to stay, where I grew up, or close to where I grew up, and that's what we're retaining. And this is a common problem across the country.
How do you
Across the country.
recruit?
What's that?
How do you recruit?
A lot of it's word of mouth, believe it or not. My last couple of hires weren't even from the hiring process. It's somebody talking to somebody, and you get them to come down, and you bring them in, and we're making a lot of changes. I don't want to talk about the contract, because we're negotiating right now, but we're making some substantial changes in the contract to be able to allow us to bring people in and make it a little more, on a positive note, a little more, beneficial to them to come in, so hopefully we will attract people. So we're making some changes there, and we know we have to make it. I made a change, sidebar to the living district. I had to extend out in order to give people the right to live in Howard and Dennis and respond back within a certain amount of time. That's off duty, but that's what I have to do. I'd rather have somebody in 15 minutes for a fire than to have nobody at all, So that's, what's that? Yeah, we've been we've running a great program in Nauset Regional with interns, bringing them in their senior year, and they spend time. We've had some really great young adults, and I think you're gonna see some of these people wanna come back. They're, like I said, I consider myself a home kid here, you know what I mean?
And that's the future. We have to train
them. Yeah, yeah.
We have to find them, recruit them, and train them
Right.
here.
Is there a program at the tech school that,
Tech school.
No, and that's something we've been looking at through the chiefs. We're in a big problem right now, and I'm sure everybody's read about it, the Barnstable County Fire Academy is closed down.
I saw that.
I can't even, we couldn't even go and do our mandatory training, smokehouse training this year, because we don't have a smokehouse, it's shut right down. The nearest one is, we either gotta go to Stowe or Fall River, so it's a big problem for us right now, so to train people until they get this fire academy thing straightened out, we're in tough shape right now. But the only thing we can do is encourage these young people, point them in the right direction. I've kind of mentored a couple people that came in here, and I had to send them, they were looking for a different position, and they went to another department, and they stayed there. And we really tried to recruit those people back, but they said, hey, you know what I mean, we've been with this other department for a year or so, and they're dedicated to it, and I give them credit for doing that, but that's what we need to keep doing, bringing them in and trying to, keep the community kids, or surrounding community kids interested in staying up here.
have you ever discussed providing some sort of incentive for housing?
I don't, I know we had talked about that before when I came from Howard, they were looking into that. I don't know, Jackie, if we've talked a whole lot about housing on that. I don't think so. Yeah.
Isn't that something that perhaps might be helpful?
Yeah, I would think so.
I mean,
It's expensive.
Jamie?
I would think before we would start looking at a whole nother arena, I would think we would want to look at what we already offer and try to bring that up to where it is. So like matching insurances before looking at another dynamic or something like that, if we started looking at changes, I would think. I don't know, Mike.
I don't even know what sort of housing incentive you would give.
We would
If you
give,
gave
yeah.
someone a stipend for, or something like that, they still gotta afford a house in Eastham, and that's the problem. I'd have to give them a massive stipend in order to do that.
And the thing is, the salaries are great. These are year-round salaries, so it's not like, I think if you do it with fire, then we're gonna have the same, we have the same.
Not just
Right,
the-
right, so.
I got a question. If you're just as happy with a guy who's a fireman who's coming 15 minutes from Harwich, how about some kind of an arrangement with Wellfleet, for example, regional, where you use some of their people, or We support them, they support us.
So you're talking regionalization?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something to look into, but Wellfleet's got their own problems. Wellfleet doesn't have enough staff. You'll see in my mutual aid running here, that will come up in another chart, how much mutual aid we're providing to these other towns because they don't have the staff. If you're gonna regionalize, you wanna be able to take something that you're gonna gain something from, not something that you're gonna have to give everything to. So until they can carry what they're doing, you know, it's difficult to do something like that. You know, we've come up, we've really come up. We man the 2 ambulances, and we're supplying these other towns, and thank goodness we're getting revenue from it. You know, when we do the transport in Wellfleet or Orleans or whatever, we get the revenue, we get the transport money from that. I think last year, don't hold me to the number, I think we went to P-Town either 2 or 3 times as a primary ambulance last summer. That's a primary ambulance, that's to respond to a call to take care of somebody from here, because they don't have the staff, or they're so busy, they're out of there. You know, it's great to talk about regionalization, but regionalization isn't a cost saver. Regionalization is something you have to add to have enough staff to do the job, and enough equipment to do the job. And that's, if they want to look at it like that and go in with that kind of attitude, it might work, but it's not a, we're going to take from you and you take from us, because there's not a lot of taking.
Okay.
So, the next one is the presentation on the Quint. I want to thank Deputy Keene. I put him in charge of this. He put this together, and we'll quickly go through that and explain what that's about. So,
Thank you, Chief. Not everyone's heard from me in a while. I've been here almost 3 years. So, and the one thing I will tell you, in putting this presentation together, you know, we understand there's a lot of questions about an expensive piece of apparatus, but I will tell you, the impetus for this entire thing is Chief Fahrenkoff's commitment to safety of not only his firefighters, the people in the community. And that's what this is all based upon. This whole thing started several years ago, which we'll touch on. That actually is, you'll see it all come to fruition. And so, anyway. Now, first things first, a quint. Oh, I think I just showed up. There you go. You hear what is a quint? There's a lot of different characterizations and names, et cetera, for
That was the guy from
apparatus.
Jaws.
But a quint, it's what we call in the fire service the Swiss Army knife of apparatus. And it's becoming very popular. The city of Richmond, Virginia uses exclusively these trucks because, you ask why, well, Quint refers to the 5 functions it performs. It has a water tank of at least 500 gallons. It pumps at least 1,500 gallons per minute. It has 1,400 feet of fire hose, not only hose that goes from our new hydrants, but also fire attack hose that we take into buildings. Ground ladders anywhere from 10 feet to 35 feet tall. And then, of course, put on top of it an aerial device that's very safe, very stable to work from. The purpose, this type of apparatus, people say, well, we don't have any tall buildings. Well, it's not for height, it's for reach. Anytime you're dealing with access to a building, you need to be in the front of the building, you need to have access to that building. Normally, the way we do it now is we have to show up, and if we have a ladder truck coming from another town, we have to put our truck out of the way in order to accommodate that ladder truck. This is not only the first 2 fire truck, it's also the ladder truck all combined in one. So it provides quicker access to the front of the building, which is our priority when fighting a fire at the front of the building, and it allows us to get the manpower to the scene quicker. So the beautiful part is we've already increased our staffing. So this fits like a glove for us. The SAFER grant that we got 2 years ago allows us to fully staff a fire truck. Previously, we were not compliant with NFPA and now OSHA requirements of 4 firefighters going out the door on an apparatus. Now we are compliant, and it gives us the opportunity to meet certain goals during our strategy and tactics of mitigating any type of fire incident. We don't have to wait for mutual aid anymore. Before, at times, we would go out the door with 2 people on a fire truck. And the requirement is we can't go into a building with 2 firefighters unless we have 2 additional outside. That's the rule. This now allows us to implement life safety mitigation right away. And that's what our priorities are with any fire, any incident, is life safety's first. Incident stabilization, calm it down, and then property conservation is third. So the goal here is safety, to protect both the citizens and the firefighters. Currently, our procedures, I touched on a little bit, our standard operating procedure is we respond to any fire with 4 firefighters on the fire engine. And if PA compliant, that's great. Automatically, we request a ladder truck from the closest town, whether it's south of Eastham, that would be Orleans, north would be Wellfleet. Keep in mind, Wellfleet has a truck that's very old, and it's been out of service more, it's been in service sometimes. And then it's a 14-minute response time. We have to consider leaving access for that truck that's coming when we pull into this little narrow street that we have here in Eastham. So consider staffing as well. In the summertime, Orleans, they could be out more than they're in, and we don't get it. So some of the things that we can handle is specifically, these are all things quick and easy to set up, et cetera. You can read that, but our municipal water system has increased our available water. We have never been able to attack a fire from above. We'll show a couple of pictures where that probably would have made a difference, but we can't attack a fire from above, only below. Now imagine if you have a garden hose and you're trying to spray the roof of your house that has a fire on it. How effective is that going to be? You're going to be spraying the smoke. And that's kind of what we do. When you look at videos on YouTube, you see it all the time. We just don't have the opportunity to do that. So you can see, it only requires 1 firefighter to put the aerial in place, which is great, because there's 3 others that are ready to do other tasks right away. Here's our traditional roof operations. This is how we get on a roof. And the reason we're on a roof is we cut holes in there because we create a chimney. Because there's no chimney. And imagine if you're in a building with flames like that inside, and you're trying to fight it, it is very hot. You can't tolerate it. So we vent the roof. That's how we do it. But the way we do it now is we have to climb up there in all weather conditions. It's part of the job, don't get me wrong, but it is probably the most dangerous part of the job right now. We can make it safer. Here's a house in Eastham that lost its roof. You can see our ladder access right there, the way we do it right now. Not only the weather conditions, that made it extra fun, but you know, it requires extra manpower to put those ladders in place. And while we have 3 firefighters doing that, we have 1 firefighter on the truck getting some hose ready. Time is wasting. You know, it's inherently dangerous doing it this way. There's a better way and a safer way to do it. So our tallest ladder is 24 feet tall currently. That's all we have. And that's the extent of it, if you can see it right there. That's the extent of it right below the windowsill. They teach us in firefighting, in fire school, that if you're going to fight a fire, you have to have 3 rungs inside that window for your own safety to be able to hold on as you're hit it with a hose. So we can't do that currently on some of the buildings in town. Rescue from windows, very difficult and obviously very unsafe. And obviously roof access is impossible. Here's just a quick comparison. So here's 3 firefighters, 1 holding it for safety. You don't want it to slip out. He's carrying some of the stuff up to this guy. He takes this ladder, there's little hooks on it, goes to the peak of the roof. So then you climb on the roof and do your work. Here, the ladder's up already, the hole is already cut, and they're in fighting the fire before you know it. This is not from some crazy big city, this is Eastham. Now you see the fire is up in the roof. We have to open that roof up to get access. It's no fun being over a fire like that. Here's Brackett Road. Big tall buildings, we have them. You just don't see them every day. You don't consider them until something like this happens. Brackett Road, I think that is now a 1-story building, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Coco Fitness now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So, now, I get it, it's expensive. So here's just, we'll throw this out here. The truck it has to be custom made, most of them are custom made, but we are going with bare bones truck. It has everything we need, nothing more, but it's perfectly adequate for the job. The truck itself is $880,000. Because it's a new piece of apparatus to us, we don't have the tools to switch from an old ladder truck into a new one. So we have to buy all new tools. That's $70,000. Now, what we do, the lifespan of this truck is 25 years, okay? We're gonna lease it over a 10-year period. So our total cost is $1 million, just over $1 million for the truck, leased over 10 years. So our annual lease cost, $108,000, comes out of our ambulance fund balance, which is approximately $1.6 million. This gives a net zero tax implication on the residents. In other words, we're not asking for a tax addition, okay? Now, the benefits certainly are significant. It's a safe, reliable work platform. It's a multiple tool. We can use it for a lot of events, car accident. We carry a lot of equipment on it. We have less reliance on mutual aid. Obviously, increased safety for our residents, increased safety for our firefighters, increased ISO rating. Is anyone familiar with that is? We save, a lot of people save some money with that rating being improved with our water. Now, when we add this aerial device, it improves it even more. So, with a 25-year expected service life, it's, these things are built like tanks. So, and then obviously, the chief talked about the injury, a couple of injuries we suffered in the summer, and it really blows the budget right out of the water. So, yeah. So our ambulance revenues, he talked about them. We're bringing in about $750,000 annually in ambulance revenues due to the manpower issue. So things are moving in the right direction. Everything's becoming much more safe for the fire department and for the residents. Absolutely.
So this is lease to own?
It is. Yes, sir.
What was the question, Pete?
Lease to own.
Oh,
Yeah.
lease to own.
So the obviously question is, well, geez, why can't you buy, we don't use them. We don't have a lot of fires. Why wouldn't you buy a used ladder? These are a couple of examples why. So ask yourself a question. Why would a department replace $1 million piece of apparatus if it was still good? There's a couple of reasons out there. Cost constraint, you would buy it and refurbish it and bring it into compliance because it has fallen out of NFPA compliance. You know, it's not something that you really want to put your people on, and it defeats the whole goal of safety. It really does. How about grant funding? We have attempted to fund this purchase for the last 2 years through the Federal Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program. We've been denied consistently because they were very clear that, even when we begged the second time, that they focus on replacing existing apparatus. So if you have an aging truck and you need to replace it, that's when they will consider your thing. Now, we benefited tremendously from, we got all new breathing apparatus, that was thousands of dollars from the federal grant. We received thousands for our hydrant tools that we had antiquated stuff that we had to bring up to the current century because of the new water system. So they paid for that. And then finally, the stretchers in our ambulance. I mean, that was hundreds of thousands of dollars that we got from the federal government. So we do seek out and receive a lot of grants. Unfortunately, we just weren't able to score it this way. So this also has been on the capital plan for the past 3 years. This is not something new. As soon as that water system was implemented, Chief Aaronkopf saw that to bring this whole puzzle together, we need water to supply a piece of apparatus like this to actually make the department as effective as it can possibly be at a fair price, if you want to look at it that way. So I show this picture one more time and zoom in just for a reason, and it is kind of odd that, or ironic, I guess, that it comes to this. The chief has an interesting story about this picture, and you may not recognize it, the people on here, but I'll let him just talk about this incident.
Okay, 1997 was May, middle of the afternoon. I was on duty in East Howard at the fire station, and we came in. Eastham had very few people at this fire. This went to a 4-alarm fire. When we got in there, we came in with an engine company, and we were ordered to the roof to ventilate the roof. At that time, there was no ladder on location. You can see the ground ladder, the tip of it, at the bottom here. And then at the ridge of the other roof, you can see the ladder going up the roof, and then that roof was what they call about a 10 pitch. It's pretty steep, and it goes way, way up to above those 2 windows where the fire is blowing out of the front. So we were ordered to go to the roof to cut a ventilation hole. Interior crews were trying to get in to put the fire out, but as the deputy talked about, those windows and everything were intact at that time. Those interior crews were getting pushed back out by heavy smoke and heavy fire and heavy heat. So what we do is we go to the roof and create a hole. So you see a chainsaw in the first firefighter coming down in his hand, and there's what they call a rake in the other firefighter's hand, that yellow pole. They went up there and they cut a 4x8 hole in that roof to ventilate that hole. When they were up there was very light smoke, white wispy smoke, like right about midship of that ladder there. It was that color smoke. Once they were able to pull that planking up, it turned black. I mean pitch black. And like I said, that ladder truck wasn't in place. That first firefighter coming down was me in 1997. And Captain Mayo from the Howard Fire Department. Like I said, we were both firefighters out of East Howard at that time. We were trapped on that roof with no way down, and that ladder truck had just arrived, and the ladder was still in the bed, meaning it hadn't even been set up. And there was a firefighter from Boston or somebody down there said, hey, you're going to lose those guys on that roof if somebody doesn't get a ladder up to them. So lucky enough, we got up, that ladder came up. We didn't even know the ladder was there. We were so heavy on the other side of that fire and smoke that all of a sudden it was like something out of a movie. This ladder came through that fire and smoke, and we were able to get on it, and we came down. So that ladder saved our lives. I've never been, in the 38 years I've been a fireman, very few times have I been afraid, but that was a day that I thought it was over with. And we came down that ladder, and that ladder was an old ladder. That ladder was, for cheap money, came out of Nantucket and was given to the Wellfleet Fire Department. And when we came off of that ladder and they brought us out over the fire and over the roof, that ladder dropped approximately 5 feet, free fell. And we were holding on with one hand, and literally your legs and everything went over the edge, and you came back down once it stopped because it had a hydraulic problem with it. I'm glad it was there. I'll take the hydraulic problem. But if you've ever free fallen from something, holding on with one hand with 90 pounds of gear on. So ladders are very close to my heart. That ladder saved my life that day. And that's one of the big reasons I'm here. And if you can go to the next one, this is a letter that was sent to me by Chief Jack Austin. I've never shared this letter with anybody, and I really don't want to get into the parts about me and blah, blah, blah. I want to get into that paragraph right there, and this is what he wrote. It's been a humbling experience, and I hope my gratitude has been adequately expressed. I also want to assure that corrective measures are in progress to prevent this, an incident of this magnitude from being repeated in the town of Eastham. I think we're headed that way. We've increased our personnel, which they didn't have back then. We have a water system that's fully functioned. Would that fire have gotten to that point if we had had a water system? I don't know. I don't think so. The only thing we're missing now is a piece of apparatus in order to be able to operate safely at an incident like that. And like I said, I don't know how coincidental this is, but that was probably one of the worst days of my life. So.
Yeah.
So, anybody got any questions on? Yes.
Yeah, what does Wellfleet have right now?
Wellfleet just purchased, I think it's out of the city of Wellesley. I think it's a 2005. They paid $85,000 for it. They're putting $200,000 in it. I just want to reemphasize what the deputy said. You do not get rid of a piece of apparatus that's valued at $1 million unless it's got problems. Or you're an extremely wealthy area that likes to change fire trucks all the time. I don't know of that. You get rid of a fire truck because it's got problems. And I'm not interested in buying another problem. I have difficulty in keeping my other 2 trucks running over there. The last thing I want to do is bring in something. This has no hit on the tax base. If I bring in something that is a mechanical problem, it's going to have a hit on the tax base. You guys are going to be paying for me to increase my maintenance budget to maintain this $1 million truck, and I'm going to have it out of service because I'm going to say it's not safe. So that's my reason. You know, if the people vote it down, I'll be back next year for it. But I don't want to buy some substandard piece of equipment that somebody else got rid of that's worth $1 million. So.
Are towns able to share?
The problem is, like the deputy said, if I can't get this truck in first in a driveway, the ladder truck's going to sit out in the road. Because we have to go in that driveway, we have to lay a feeder line in to give us water, and we have to set up and go and fight the fire. If I have to keep my fire engine out in the road to wait for the ladder truck to come in from Orleans, there's a big delay. And I'm telling you, like I said, well, look at the mutual aid here. It is so difficult to rely on your neighbors here. We are in a tough spot here. I got mutual aid there and I got mutual aid there. I have nothing here and nothing there. And they're so busy over in Orleans that they have difficulty getting their second ambulance on the road. And Wellfleet, the same thing. Same thing. So I don't want to gamble. I don't want to gamble with my people's life. You know? So that's my bleeding heart story on why I think it's important to have that piece of apparatus. Any more questions on that? Yes?
Why do a 10-year lease with an option to buy at the end instead of just buying the thing in some type of a bond or something?
No, it's not an option to buy. You own at the end of the lease. It's not like a regular lease where you pay the value at the end.
We're just financing.
Financing it for 10 years just to spread it out a little bit.
All right.
Yep.
I know we say leasing, but it's just finance.
We're buying it and paying for it over 10 years.
10 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
What's the lifetime of this piece of equipment?
25.
25 years.
25. Not to say at 18 years it may have to go for some hydraulic work and
that's-
like anything, normal maintenance, but 25 is the life expectancy of a ladder truck.
And just to add to that, George, we looked at different options on length of time. But there's other, there's ambulance that need to get replaced, and there are other items they'll have to buy that will have to come out of the ambulance fund. So spreading it over 10 years made the most financial sense when we looked at the other things we have to purchase in the future, so.
All of our large capital comes out of the ambulance fund, so there is no tax increase from our large capital purchases, so.
So what have you been using the ambulance funds for prior to
We just
now?
bought that forestry unit last year. That's a 3-year lease at like $89,000 a year, and I think we got one more year left in it. When we purchased the 2 administrators' cars, those are paid off. Those are a 3-year lease, like at $30,000 each. The ambulances were paid off in a 3-year lease. Those are coming up next year. Those will be a 3-year lease again, and the life expectancy on those is 5 years. And they're usually $120,000 around 5 years, but a lot of time idling and those type of things, so.
If I can interrupt for 1 sec. Basically, each year, we dedicate so much of the ambulance fund towards the general fund payment for firefighter expenses, operating expenses, thanks, Mike, sorry, and the other half for capital.
Okay, thank you.
Some years it's more of one than the other.
So it's a Quint.
Yes.
So it's got all these multiple purposes. So it can function as just kind of a normal fire engine?
You could pull up to a car fire on Route 6 with it. You don't do
So-
anything with the ladder and fight the fire, yes.
So maybe it'll save having to buy another normal fire
Well,
engine at some point.
I am going to, I was going to get to that in a minute. I am going to get, dispose of in 2 years. We have a tanker over there, 2,300-gallon tanker that was bought used. And that's coming up on its 25 years. It's a 97. Once I get a little more of the water in, a few more hydrants in different areas, I'll feel comfortable getting rid of that truck. And so we will be disposing of one truck and not getting a new one. The 2 engines, my issue now is I have a lot of problems with my engines. A lot of it's due to the old water problems. And I have one out of service quite a bit, and that only leaves me 1 fire truck in town. So if I have multiple calls or I have a large fire, I only have 1 fire truck available to respond because the other one's out of service. This one will give me a third with that capability, so when I have 1 down, I will have 2 left to be able to respond. Are we good on that? Yeah, I printed out the 5-year capital in big because I can't read the small. So I gave you a copy of it there. I've always used my capital here, and when I was in Howard, I use it as a placeholder. We move things around quite a bit. So there's a lot of numbers on there, but, I take a look at something the year before and see what kind of shape it's in and how it's doing. So those are like tentative spots for a lot of the equipment and all that, but I am coming up on ambulances next year. So that will be 3 years for replacement of the ambulances. And we're coming up on another fire engine and FY14. We'll see what kind of condition the other ones are at that point. We may be able to move that out a little bit. Just the incidentals in between there for regular maintenance and.
You don't mean FY14, you mean FY24?
I'm sorry, FY24. Yeah. Any questions on the capital? Hospital time, somebody asked a question about hospital time. Is there any possibility of reduced downtime at the hospital so employees and equipment are more readily available to our citizens? I've taken several steps. This is a problem with me. It's something that really bothers me. My ambulances are held up at the hospital for a long period of time, and I need to get them back down here. I did implement a policy a year and a half ago that when I have 2 ambulances up there, no matter what the condition is, when the other ambulance gets up there, whoever is available and not doing some of the work that has to be done within the hospital gets in that ambulance and gets back. We may not have the perfect crew or 2 paramedics or whatever it may be, but I get that ambulance back into town. So we have put that into effect. It works very well. My people are very, they know how important that is, and they're very good at doing that. Cape Chiefs that I'm a member of, we talked about speeding up information. I know some of you people who've taken to the hospital, and I know that's where some of the comments came from, but I just want to walk you through what a normal medical run to the hospital is in August. So what you do is you get your drive time, which is another whole story. You get into the hospital and there's no beds in the emergency room. The emergency room is so full. And what you do is you wait, and a nurse will come up to you and say, go outside of room 17. They'll put a cot outside of 17. So you put the patient in the cot outside of 17, and you wait, because these nurses are hustling, trying to manage the whole thing there. Then the nurse shows up and you give them the information that they need on the patient. Then you have to go back to the EMS room where you do all your paperwork. You do your paperwork, which is multiple pages of drugs and medications and EKGs and all this stuff. Then you send it to the printer. The printer takes it, then you take it back to the nurse, and the nurse or the doctor has to sign off. If you use medication on this individual, somebody has to go to the pharmacy in the hospital and replace the medication. If you have a real bad call and the ambulance is a mess, that takes a lot of time cleaning up, sterilizing and all that stuff. So that's a normal run. So an hour at the hospital is normal, is a normal situation. And then we got the traffic. You tell me on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock coming back from Cape Cod Hospital, how long it takes to get from Willow Street to here. So we do the best we can. We have put those policies in effect. Cape Cod Chiefs Association, the Cape Cod Hospital is doing a high-speed computer thing that's tied into our ambulances. So hopefully now we'll be able to send the information ahead of time, so they'll have some of it via the cloud or whatever. So.
I missed that first part. What does this have to do with the budget, the traffic?
No, we're on the next ambulance bill.
Oh,
Next question.
Sorry.
Are there plans to widen Willow Street?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, the CAM, I think CAM and those buildings down there.
Everything on the
Yeah.
airport side will be,
Yeah.
it's already gonna be gone. and
A lot of
there's-
it
I
be
saw the
turned into
plans
the
for it.
rotary, so you don't have to get stuck in
Yeah.
that.
It's gonna be nice, yeah, someday.
What's the timing on that, do you know?
25, I think I heard.
25?
What's that have to do with the budget?
We talked about our ambulance revenue, like I said, it's up. And there's an interesting thing on that ambulance revenue sheet. If you look at FY18, we made a 14% jump in ambulance revenue. That was the year that we hired the new employees. And that just showed we were able to handle more runs and bring in more revenue because we had those employees.
Well, that's the SAFER grant.
That's with the SAFER grant. But we were able to bring in extra revenue and kick up our, we went from 556 to 633 in ambulance revenue collected. So that's an interesting point to show how beneficial those 4 positions were. Overlapping, one of the questions was, what percentage of the time are both ambulances in use? 360 overlapping responses last year. So that means whether one of them's not in the station and another one had to go out, whether it was an ambulance or fire truck. And the interesting thing about that is, I did a little quick math on that. Out of the 360 incidents, I'm guesstimating that 180 of them are transports to the hospital, one half. And I'm looking at that, I split that 180 into 90 and 90 for BLS, which is basic life support, and ALS, which is advanced life support, so 90 and 90. If we bill them out at the Medicare rate, which they really cut us way, way down, we get reimbursed like a third of what we would normally from a regular insurance company. If we take those runs, at Medicare, I'd collect $96,840. It cost me $59,000 to staff that station with the extra people to handle those runs on coverage. We have a gain of $37,000. If that same number is real insurance, where people have insurance and the insurance companies are paying, it's $368,460 is the revenue. We pay $59,000 to cover that station. We have a gain of $309,000. That just shows you that overtime covering those positions, how much it brings in and what it pays for. And the biggest thing to me is I'm not leaving one person alone over there working, and I'm able to supply emergency response to the people out there on the second run. And we do a lot of second runs. So, any questions on that? The last question was, what is the feasibility of splitting the EMT and firefighter positions in employment? And would such a split improve operations? I think you know what my answer is here. That's no. We have, our people are trained in all aspects of emergency response, and you're not gonna get a better person than somebody that can do pretty much everything out there. If you wanna stop splitting services and have people coming in from who knows wherever to staff an ambulance, I don't recommend that. I wanna keep the people in town, I wanna keep them working. We're talking about keeping the young people here. We need to support the people that we have and keep the service going that we have, because we have a great service. And the people on Cape Cod overall are very lucky for the emergency and fire services that they have, and I'm a big opponent of that. And so, any questions?
I have a question for the Finance Committee. I'm not wondering
No,
if...
we don't run fire trucks.
Right. No, I understand that, but you guys put together these questions. And I'm not wondering if there would be some utility in finding out what actual information you're looking for the budget out of these questions, because I'm having a hard time tracking that. Maybe something just to think about in the future here, when you guys put together some questions, what the utility is. I got you. I'm just wondering which ones are they? It's pretty.
Well, like say, question 9, where it says, what percentage of time? Like, do we need more ambulances?
Okay.
You know, I mean,
Wouldn't we just ask, do we need more ambulances?
well, but it's good to get data to back up why that may be the case.
Well, maybe if it's a two-part question, write both questions.
More questions?
I'm just curious. It's hard for me to follow. I'm just me speaking here.
We good?
That's it. That's all I got for
I
that.
just want to thank both.
I'm not sure that you answered question 8
Yeah,
in the
thank you.
material.
Thank you.
Unpaid bills.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Thank you, George.
Yeah, I've got it right here. Okay, last year, I wrote off $7,380 in unpaid bills. What that is, I receive a hardship letter, and I put a copy of a hardship letter in there from,
Yes.
from a, somebody
Bulgarian.
from overseas that had no insurance. I had another one recently that they had just gotten taken off of Mass Health. They had no coverage, and they had like a $2,800 bill. Those are the hardship letters I get sent from Coastal Medical, send them to me, said, Chief, please take this under advisement. I review it, and I wrote off $7,300 last year, which was roughly three requests last year. Was there another part to that question?
What are the requirements of some company or business hiring people for the summer like that? As far as,
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if J1s, if you're a J1, if you have to have insurance. I don't know. I don't know if this person was. I think they might have just been over here visiting, you know,
Oh.
spent some time. I don't know the history. Didn't really get into it. It's just that he was sent over here from a university
well,
or
he says he's on a
school.
student program.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the situation is there, but, you know, we write off very little compared, and do I want to go chase these people and try to verify their stories for the amount that we're going to get back? No.
Yeah, and to answer, the current accounts receivable for ambulance runs around 600,000, but that's because it adds every month. I don't Coastal could probably give us a breakdown of it.
Well,
but
it's on that first sheet.
Which-
The first sheet there that's got the ambulance, it shows you just what we took in last year.
Yeah, but, yeah, it asks what the current accounts receivable is, so
Oh,
the
no,
balance
okay.
is, what to be collected is around 600. And that changes every month. They are adding some and they're taking some off, so they could give you probably an outlook. I could probably get you guys an outlook of the days outstanding on that, but it's around 600,000.
No, the important number is the write-off number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
particularly with insurance claims.
Yep.
They
Right.
take a while to-
We took in like $1.9 million last year. But by the time you pay the mandatory cuts with Medicare, Medicaid, and Mass Health, they dictate to you, the perfect example is, we, here's someplace. Well, an ALS run, an advanced ALS run for us is like $3,200, and they pay like $1,000. So pretty much on everything we bill, they pay a third. And when you get to Medicaid, it's even less. And those are all state mandates and federal mandates, so we have no control over collecting that money. Luckily, like I said, the deputy, we got involved in that other program, and this year, like I said, we brought $95,000 in above what our normal collection is, because we did go after Medicare and Medicaid for emergency services to get some more funding out of them. And I think we're up over 200,000 in the last 2 years. We brought in additional $200,000 in medical reimbursement. So, and if you don't chase that, you're not going to get it.
There's a lot of administrative work that goes along with that, though. So we're lucky that the deputy devotes some time to that, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to capture.
Real quick, so I'm looking at your pie chart about the overtime.
Yep.
And so a full 80% of your need for overtime is either incident-related, something happened, you needed more people to respond, or it's shift coverage.
Correct.
Somebody's out on an LOA, somebody's out sick, vacations, that kind of thing. So that's the big nut, those two, it's people, you need people.
It's keeping that magic 4 working or 5 in the on-season and keeping 3 for coverage.
Right.
That's where I put all my money, pretty much,
And-
except for training.
Yeah, so when you need to provide people for that, you don't have anybody available straight time, right? The only option is to bring somebody in on overtime.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So if we hired you more firefighters, if we could even do that, to your earlier point, in theory, would there be a point where you've got people to call that could go and do those functions on straight time instead of at a 50% premium? It would seem like it would be, but it gets into the whole issue of.
The benefits then, too.
I would love to have 8 people on duty over there and be able to drop down 2 on vacation and have basically no overtime except for training and real emergencies. But at $100,000 an employee, that 400 and some odd $1,000 I spend is a pretty good, less money, a lot less money than hiring more people. If you guys want to give me,
Well, if you had one,
No, because it just.
one extra?
Yeah, I'll gladly
Still
take
more
one
than
on each
double.
shift, but it's 4. I have 4 shifts, so I need 4 to give one on each shift. So you have to hire another 4, just like we do. It's $100,000 an employee right now.
With salary and benefits.
With salary and benefits, getting them trained, it's a big process, and I'll gladly take them, but I really still think the best game is to pay the overtime. And the other thing about the overtime, and you may not like to hear it, is it keeps my people available to me. When they have a revenue source off-duty, they're not out working some other place, most of them, they're available and they come back, and I'm very fortunate with the people I have. I have a good portion of those people that come back. And that's my savior right there. And like I said.
Benefits the town too, to be happy
Yes,
to know those
yes.
people are there. It helps them.
Correct.
Right? That's good money for them.
Right.
But it helps us
Yeah,
to know
right.
that people will respond, they're available.
Right, and I need those people, and you need those people.
Right. Yep.
So it's still the cheapest way to do it, and like I said, look at the other numbers the towns are spending. We run pretty tight here, and we provide a real good service for how we run our business over there. I want to thank the people over there, I want to thank Administrator Beebe and Mike Lorenco, both the boards, you guys have always been very supportive of everything we've done, we brought that department to a good position. But I really need to thank those people over there, I'm just a facilitator, the deputy and those people over there are the ones that make it happen and are out there saving lives, so that's where it all needs to go, so, thank you. That was back when I was young.
You don't see him on that.
I also want to point out that the chief is using single-use, reusable, I mean. Reuse, excuse me, not single use, as I meant to say.
Alex, do you think I'm gonna walk in here with a plastic bottle tonight, huh?
Did you buy that special just for tonight?
I know, I got that compliments of the Brewster Fire Department, it was a freebie. Brand new. Thank
Had
you.
been exposed to fire.
All right, thank you very much, Chief. All right, the next chief.
I don't want a ladder truck.
I don't want to let her.
It's
I
one of our latest meetings in a long time, but appreciate you sticking around. Well, no.
Hello, how's everybody doing? Is everybody awake out there?
No.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that, maybe a little cappuccino or,
We could use some pizza.
I don't know about pizza, we'd all fall asleep, I
That
think, if we
would,
did
that would put me out, I'm afraid.
That's because you made it.
Typically, I always start off by talking about our operational budget and then moving into the police budget and talk about capital and cars. But tonight, what I want to do, while we still have our firefighters here, is talk about dispatch. This year in our capital budgeting, you noticed in the paperwork, there's an expenditure for $500,000 for our dispatch center. That has been on our budget for the last 5 years, and this is something Sheila and I put together, and as typical with very, very expensive things, we keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. This year, in particular, it was urgent because now the state is going to a digital format for their radio system. They are embarking on a $120 million project to digitize, to go to a digital format for their radio system for the entire county. As part of that, we have to make sure that our radios in our dispatch center is compatible, and to do that, we need to upgrade our dispatch center. And we're one of the few dispatch centers on Cape Cod currently operating in 1989 dispatch councils. We have 2 position councils, and we're at a point right now, as I said, where we have to move into a new direction. As part of that project, we're also going to be putting in new portable radios in the cars, or I should say mobile radios, and each officer will get a new digital-based portable radio, as will all the fire trucks and all of the unmarked vehicles. So every public safety vehicle will have a digital-ready radio, so then when they turn the switch, and they say in the next year, year and a half, we'll see. But we have to be ready to go, and we have to have radios that are digital ready, thereby allowing us to be able to communicate with everyone as well as the county. One good thing with this project that we just found out, and this just happened about 2 weeks ago, is the state came down and spent about 2.5 hours explaining how they have generated some funds to defray some of the cost for the mobile radios and for the portable radios. In figuring our needs here in Eastham and looking at what they're telling us they're going to reimburse us, we're looking at about a savings of about $60,000 to $70,000, which would come off of that 500. So that 500,000 is an earmark just to kind of placehold the amount in the worst case scenario. My final figures from Motorola for the dispatch center, they should have been here tonight. I'm still waiting. But as I say, the 500,000 is the high side. I hope to come in before town meeting on a lower end of that. And I think you're going to see that we will be much lower. Somewhere around 420 is what I'm figuring, 410. Also, as part of that project is an upgrade at the Eastham Elementary School. What we are finding is that we have some transmission problems, specifically with portable-to-portable communications inside certain areas of the school. It's of particular concern to the firefighters if they're there fighting a fire or dealing with a rescue in the basement area and in certain other areas of the school. They cannot talk to dispatch, they cannot talk to each other if using their portable radio. It's a lot of static. So we brought in an engineer, and as part of the $500,000 plan, in that is an amplification system to make that signal more useful so that obviously that we can talk to each other, because that's an important thing. Just for those that don't know, the library has that system. If you remember when we built that library, because that was a point of discussion about, you know, whether it was going to be compatible with the new digital system and whether it was working properly. And we also have that same system at Nauset High School. We actually have two of them, one original system, and about 2 years ago, the school board found some money to enhance that system so it's even much better than it was. But the problem is with a lot of these buildings that are cinder block and steel is that our portable radios just will not penetrate through. And as a result, our communication is very, very spotty, which obviously for public safety is of great concern. So it's something that is needed, and it's something we're very much looking forward to. Everything now with those dispatch consoles, which is so different than what we had in the past, is all PC-based. And so the ability for the dispatchers to do multiple transmissions on multiple frequencies is very simple. It's all touch screen, and it's just an incredible system, definitely needed. And to be honest with you, right now we're dealing now with the county coming down to repair our system. Many times they can't even get parts for our radio system. And in talking to the technicians, many times they'll go on eBay and look for older departments that are doing what we're going to be doing, getting rid of their systems, and they'll cannibalize it, and then they'll buy it on eBay from a town that is moving and upgrading their system. So unless you have any questions on this, I just wanted to get in front of this because I think it's an important thing, and it's an important thing not just for us at the police department, but it really is a true Eastham public safety need that has been put off for many years, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed this year. While talking about dispatch, why don't we talk about their operating budget? Essentially, that budget is very, very flat. The budget consists of, for the most part, salaries, overtime. There's very, very little in there. Years ago, we used to have some other items in there, and we slowly have moved everything over into the police operating side. And we cover much of that through the police operating side, office supplies, things of that nature. One thing that we do have is we have a very, very robust grant program through State 911. State 911 defrays our costs on many levels with our dispatch center to the tune of about $35,000 for what they call a support and incentive grant. We take a large portion of that support and incentive grant and we use against our personnel costs. That helps with overtime and for straight time for personnel. In addition, they also help us with some specified equipment for that room, i.e. copy paper, fax machines, some computers. Just this year, this current fiscal year we're in, we replaced a fax machine as well as 2 PC units for our CAD RMS operating system. So it's a very, very good grant program that the state has. It's challenging to fill out, and I've been going through it with Deputy Chief Bohannon, and we have some trying time dealing with the state, as you can imagine, with any grant. But it's good money, and it's good money for us. Last year, because we went and started covering cell phone 911 calls, we got an additional $12,500. Now, those calls, instead of going to the state police, come directly to our dispatch center right here in Eastham, which I felt was a good thing. And the impact on our dispatchers, at first I was concerned about the increase in call volume, and actually we haven't even felt it. So it's actually been a very, very good thing on both levels. The revenue it produces, but also the level of service it provides for our residents and visitors alike. So it's a good thing.
All 911 calls come right here.
All 911 calls come in here. That's correct. Any other comments or questions about the dispatch center or about dispatch in general? If not, I'm going to move on to the police side. For the police on the operating side, we are remaining relatively flat with some exceptions that I'll go over. And incidentally, I got my laundry list of questions too, as did the fire chief. And as I'm going through these explanations, I'm going to answer about 6 of the 8, and then at the end, we'll hit the last 2. One of them has to do with a turn arrow at Samoset, which I don't know what that has to do with the budget, but I'll be happy to answer it.
Well, we got you in the room. I think it's-
I'm here, I'm a captive audience. Training is one of the things that in the 10 years I've been here, I've tried to slowly get that budget to come up, and we've been successful in doing that. As a result of that, I feel we have one of the better trained departments on the Cape. I'm proud of that. I also think it's one of the reasons why our officers stay here. They like being here. We also have an easy time recruiting officers to come to our department. I know that was one of the questions that you had asked, do we have trouble bringing people in? And although the numbers for recruiting maybe aren't as high, what I'm finding is that the people that want to work in Eastham, for the most part, are very, very high quality. In 39 years of doing this, in the last 15 as a chief, and I kid you not, this is probably the best group of cops that I've ever worked with right now. We have just bright, energetic, educated, quality people, number one, and good officers, number two, that come to work every day, rarely call in sick, and want to do a great job, and always have a positive approach to the job. And, you know, it's a good feeling as a boss to know that you don't have to worry about who's working tonight. And it's a good time right now at the Eastham PD.
So I just have a question. You don't seem to have the same problem hiring that the
No, we don't. We've had some good luck recently. I think part of it is they have a very, very good salary structure right now. We require a bachelor's degree to come on, which at the outset I was concerned about. But I think what we're finding is that because our salaries are up there and our schedule is a good schedule relative to other departments, our officers work a 5-on, 3-off schedule, which is a nice schedule. It gives them some quality time at home, but yet when they come here, they work hard. There's also some overtime opportunity for them. Details specifically, not as much in terms of straight overtime, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But there's plenty of detail work if they want to do it. I mean, some officers don't. They work their 5 days and go home. But for the most part, we've been very lucky. In fact, the last 3 officers we've hired have been laterals from other departments, 1 from Truro, 2 from Orleans. And that's a great thing for us because training becomes a non-issue. We know what we're getting because our officers have worked closely with these officers because they're from neighboring towns, and we do so much work together through mutual aid that when we have somebody of interest, we can put out a feeler and say, so-and-so is looking to come here. What do you think? What does the group think? Are they going to fit in? It's one thing for them to want to work here. Do we want them to work here? Is it going to be the right fit? It's like any relationship. You have to make sure that it's going to work. And so far, knock on wood, we've had some great success. So I hear there's a vacancy coming up at the end of this month, so maybe we'll get another lateral entry, which would be great.
So they're coming here because the pay is better?
I think the pay's better. Right now, I don't mean to pat ourselves on the back, but I think we have a good culture right now. So, officers talk, and they say it's a good department. And so right now, people want to work here, and that's a good thing. So I hope it stays that way, and I'm sure it will.
Excuse me, Chief, I just wanted to, and Mary, it's a very different animal, the police versus the fire, because we have different training and education credentials for fire. It's that paramedic certification is difficult to come by, and the training radius, that callback issue that you have on fire, makes that 15-minute time. You have to live within 15 minutes, where our police officers can live in Harwich or Dennis or.
And I also don't have a competitive department offering a 90/10
Right.
medical enhancement on their medical benefits, which it's a tough thing to fight, and it's a significant amount of money for. Yeah. Absolutely. Talking about training, one of the things that I've been pushing over the last several years is for advanced supervisory training for all of our supervisors. We have some very, very bright young supervisors. But one of the things that's important is advanced executive level and command level training. Deputy Chief Bohannon went this year. Next year, we hope to send somebody else. It's a 2-week training at Roger Williams. They do outstanding work, but it prepares our supervisors and our command staff to manage a police department, to deal with specific issues, to learn how to budget, to problem solve, to deal with personnel problems and such, which as you get up to the management level, you spend more time dealing with that than you actually do fighting crime. So it becomes that much more important to make sure they're capable, qualified, and ready to handle that. So it's great that we're able to send them to this training. I want to talk a little bit about overtime, which is always a big issue. I'm happy to report that this year, because we're up to 17 officers, which we haven't been ever since I've been here in 10 years, which was always the number, in looking at our organizational chart, that I wanted to attend. I had a vision for what I wanted our numbers to be, and in including having a full staff, plus a detective, plus a sergeant that could float and fill in when the other shifts were off. We are finally at that level. And as a result, which is what I figured would happen, our overtime costs have gone down. I'm amazed. Every payroll, I look at it and go, is that all it is? Is there a mistake? We're down about 30 to 40% in our overtime. And if we stay on this course, we're looking at probably close to $100,000 that we'll give back to the town, which always makes me happy. I am a crazy man about overtime. We very much watch not just how much we spend, but where we spend our overtime. I have about 12 categories that my assistant will categorize each hour of overtime each day, and then monthly will give me a report. So if we see an increase in a certain category, we'll say, well, why is that? We've been lucky also this winter. We haven't had really many storms. Hopefully we won't. But you have one major storm, that'll make a hit in your overtime. An injury like Chief Fahrencroft had talked about earlier, a sickness. We've been very, very fortunate. And as I alluded to earlier, with the quality staff we have right now, our sick time is so low. Our officers just don't take sick time unless they're really sick, and we've had some healthy people. So all of that contributes to a decrease in the overtime costs for the town. So that's a very, very good thing. So
that being the case, why is the budget number for overtime the same as the budget number for the current year, and you said you're 100,000 below that. Why are you budgeting that high if your experience right now is?
Because there's no guarantee that it's going to stay there. When I get together with Michael Lorenko, our Chief Financial Officer, and look at our overtime, we do cost averaging over the last 10 years. And if you do that, you'll see that some might say this year is an anomaly. I hope not. I hope it's a trend, but there's no guarantee in that. One of the things we don't want to do is not budget enough and then find ourselves $30,000 or $40,000 in the red and have to come back to you and ask you for more. So that number was based on a few months back when we looked at the last 5 to 7 years. And if you do that, you'll see that it's actually low. It should be higher if you take those last 8 years. But we were trying to find a factor that would be realistic, but yet not too low, where we'd really be in trouble. I think I've captured that, right, Mike? Yeah. Okay.
Like Ket is experiencing this year, if an officer went out of duty, then we'd have to find a way to pay for that. If by budgeting this amount, it allows me to support the police force in that need, and we don't have to come back to you guys or the town for money in the future. So.
Yeah, typically, we're looking at about 4,300 hours is the average that I have seen over the last several years. This year, we're going to be well under that, based on what I'm seeing. But once again, no guarantees. You know, you try to keep it down as best you can, but you know, you also have to be realistic.
Is that the same situation with the holiday pay?
No, and the holiday pay is based, and we talked about this last year.
Yeah.
He funds that with the idea that officers may take their 12 holidays as cash.
Oh.
So he figures that out and puts that amount in there because they can. They rarely do, as you can see over the last several years, but he still funds it, assuming they may. So that's why that number is always high.
So I know the conversations, I would tell you, right, I have to budget for the possibility of anything. If I don't, I have to come to you, or we actually have to have a special town meeting to fund that expense. So, you know, in the past, the town, and I would say Jackie and both all the department heads, we've been pretty close on free cash. The last couple of years, we've had some, you know, great turnaround on expenses. This year, we had 1.7 in free cash. So our goal is to always turn money back, and everyone doesn't spend to that line, and we were able to turn money back. But I still have to budget for the worst-case scenario. If I don't, and we have to go to a special town meeting, it won't probably end up well for the town, and it costs us money to do that. So that's why all these expenses kind of look like that. I have to budget for the potential that every officer takes 12 holidays, even though the past doesn't really do that. Now, in the future, we may change that approach, but we had the money. We didn't have to do an override, so we just fund it just in case. So
there's quite a bit of money going back to the general fund. Then.
Yeah, it goes
Yes,
to free
and we
cash.
count on that. And it's not, I mean, it's free cash. It becomes available for reappropriation. We can't spend that money without town meeting authority.
Right.
So, you know, we have very few tools to spend any money that is not authorized by town meeting. So we have to plan, you know, a year or more ahead when we're building these budgets, and we have to prepare for the worst-case scenario.
Just to give an example, last year and then for 3 years prior to that, we had an officer that was on the books but was unable to work and was technically injured, so she couldn't fulfill a patrol position, but she still was getting a salary, and she finally left. But the point is, she's on the books, and that's money out of the coffers, and then you have to backfill
With somebody else?
with someone else, correct? So now we're at 17. She has left us, and we're in a good place right now as far as personnel, overtime costs. You know, we're really at a nice place, and we just hope it stays there. I want to talk next about a part-time animal control officer position that we've been working on for almost a year. This was something that came out of an initiative of an animal working group looking at our regulations with Steve Wasby and some others who put a lot of time and effort into. One of the things that came out of that meeting was there were a lot of things that we could do and we should do better regarding some animal regulations, barn inspections, as well as some other additional duties that through that group were added to the animal control's assignments, if you will. With that in mind, we had conversations with area towns, one with Wellfleet, who was going through similar concerns, and as a result, we've entered into an understanding that if this money is allocated, we would collaborate with Wellfleet and hire a full-time position, which we would share with them. And it especially is a great thing for the seasonal time when we're real busy. Because what we were doing now is we were taking one of our police officers, anointing them as an animal control officer, and trying to do both her police duties as well as fulfill these obligations as the animal control agent. And it was, quite honestly, virtually impossible. She's done a great job as best she could, but she's also trying to answer calls, run to domestics, and stop cars for speeding, and doing all of these other duties that a police officer does. And we felt it would be better served on both fronts if we could designate somebody to be a true animal control officer. And Wellfleet is very interested, and they want to do this with us, and I think it'd be just a fantastic idea. So our plan is to hopefully enter in a memorandum of understanding with Wellfleet and have this individual work both towns, answer calls, but also, in addition, be able to patrol the beaches for violations, talk to people, educate people about, leash laws and such, which I also feel was an area that was somewhat void, only because we just didn't have the people to do that. Now we will. And we've met with the individual who's currently already working in Wellfleet part-time, and he's excited and he's interested and he wants to do this. And so I think it'd be a fantastic thing.
Does the 30,000, what does that include? Is that just his pay?
That's half of his pay, and Jackie's working with their town administrator to come up with more specifics on benefits and vehicle use and things of that nature, which are more the nuts and bolts of the operational side. But all indications is that this is going to be a win-win for both towns and for the residents. So I think it'll be a great thing. There was some mention last year, and I know it was in your questions, about putting a traffic officer on duty in the summertime, and we've hit it around, talked about it. I've talked to the deputy and the rest of the staff, and I don't think this is the year to do it, especially in light of the fact that we're asking for a half officer for the animal control. And in addition, in looking to the fact that we are at full staff, our school resource officer now will be an additional patrol officer in the summertime, which is our busiest season, which is also the time of the year when we see an increase in traffic and speeding. The idea and the vision we have is to take our SRO, our school officer, and designate him or her, right now it's him, as that traffic officer, and have him as an extra person out there focusing specifically on speeding, on dealing with traffic complaints, traffic issues, and I think this could be the answer to some of the concerns we discussed last year. So my suggestion, at least for this fiscal year coming up, is to try that as a model and see how it plays out. And then maybe next year revisit it and see if we don't feel we've handled it properly, then we could come back and we could visit it again. But I think it's a good plan, and I think we should try it, and we're going to give that a shot. Talk a little bit about capital costs, and the big discussion this year was our vehicles, and I know you had several questions about how many vehicles we have, how many we replace, why do we replace our cars when we do. So let me start by telling you we have 10 vehicles in our fleet. 4 are primary patrol vehicles. 3 are unmarked vehicles. 1 is assigned to the chief, 1 the deputy chief, and 1 to the detective. Then we have a school resource officer who has a patrol vehicle that's assigned to him or her that he takes back and forth to school. And we also have a pickup truck that is used primarily for lugging equipment for parades and such, but also is used at details. You'll see it out working the water project and other details. It's fully marked, it's lit like the rest of the vehicles. So it's a real good utility vehicle. In addition, because we've had the water project over the last several years, I kept back one of our patrol vehicles, which is one of the 10, just for details, because we had so many officers working during the project that we kept one of our older vehicles specifically to be used for the details. Once this water project is over, the plan is to get rid of that, and we drop down to 9 vehicles in our fleet. You wouldn't need that 10th. And that's something we even discussed doing this year. Initially, I had put in for 2 vehicles, and I know I had discussions with Mike and Jackie, and because of the capital budget this year being as high as it is, the thought was to drop down to 1 car, which is what it is now. You'll see that number is going to be probably close to $43,000, $44,000. I don't know if that change was made, Mike. I don't think it was, but yeah. The 2020 utility is a new model this year. So as with any new model year, they've increased the cost by $4,000. And lo and behold, all of the equipment that we currently have won't fit in the new car. And I often say, you know, the equipment people and Ford are working this thing together. I guess that's called capitalism, but it's costing us money to transfer and to get a new car when you have a new model year, because the interior is all different and completely new. They also offered a hybrid edition, which was an additional $4,000, which I said this year we would not go to that, although initially I thought it would be a nice initiative. The cost was just so prohibitive with the changes in the model plus the equipment. It would be so exorbitant, it made no sense to do it this year. So we are asking for 1 vehicle, and then we would trade in a vehicle. And that would, you know, keep us at 10. Next year, we would start the cycle on the unmarked of a new unmarked vehicle. We would request a new lease. Every unmarked is on a different schedule than the cruisers. The cruisers are on a schedule of 3 to 4 years typically, depending on whether we have that extra detail car, which currently we do. So as they drop down and we get a new car, then the primaries would go to the detail car or to the SRO car, and then phased out over the 4th year. Typically, we trade them in at about 130 to 140,000 miles, but that's road miles. With police vehicles, one of the things you always have to keep in mind is these vehicles are running 24/7. The formula that's used in our profession is 1 hour of idling is 33 miles. So you figure it out. That's a lot of miles and a lot of wear and tear on that engine. Idling is one of the worst things for an engine. and police vehicles idle a lot. So when you see a police vehicle sitting on the side of the road running radar, writing a report, or monitoring traffic, it's patrol time, but it's patrol time on the idle side, and it's still wear and tear on the vehicles. I'm a big believer for this fleet, ideally 2 cars a year is the right formula to maximize the vehicles in top condition, to make sure vehicles on the road and not in the shop. We're only running 4 vehicles, and we have an hour of the day where we have 4 officers working at the same time because our officers work a 9-hour shift. So there's an overlap of an hour. That's done specifically during commuter rush hour in the summertime. That's why they have these 9-hour shifts. Ideally works right, but we have to have police vehicles to put these officers in. Otherwise, that whole model doesn't work. So I would urge you that don't get away from the 2 vehicles a year. Once I'm gone, I don't want to leave poor Adam here with a problem, because I've seen it. I've been a chief for 15 years, and inevitably, every year, this comes up. And it's a question that all boards ask. Why do you need this many cars? Why is that the right amount? Once you get to 70 to 80,000 miles on a police vehicle, you will see major costs. You're starting to see rear ends, transmissions, engine problems, all kinds of issues. When you consider officers are in that vehicle for 8 hours a day, that's their office. That's where they're living. It's not, go to a spot and park it and then do your business. They're in that car all day, and they're doing their work, and we want to give them the best equipment so that they can be efficient and functional in their job.
Question on the idling. A lot of the manufacturers are coming out with cars that shut off when they come to a stop. Do they not work for high-powered vehicles like cruisers?
They don't make them for police vehicles, no. No.
They will.
Couple other things in my capital budget for this year. I put in for electronic speed signs. You might see them in some of the other communities. What we're finding is that we're getting a lot of complaints from our beach communities, some of our bay roads to the beaches. This summer in particular, we had loads of complaints. We're going to try a project this year, if this money is allocated, to put a couple of those speed signs on a couple of those roads to see if we can bring down some of those speeds. We stick an officer there, and that's great, and it lowers the speed, but as soon as the officer leaves, you know what happens, the speed goes back up. We're constantly battling it. It's our primary duty out there is the speed, both on Route 6, but also on some of the other roads. And to answer one of your questions, what are we doing about speed? We pull over approximately 3,600 cars a year. We give a lot of citations and a lot of warnings, and even with that, people go out there and speed when we're not there. But accidents are down. We're seeing that our crashes are down, and that's an indication of officers out there being visible and being functional and working to try to minimize accidents, which at the end of the day, that's really the key stat that we're most concerned about. But we're going to continue to fight that fight. And the last thing on the capital for this year is new video surveillance cameras for the police department. When I came here in '09, we had a couple of black and white cameras, but they didn't go anywhere. They didn't tape anything. And I said, what are we going to do with that? Because if we have an incident, we don't have anything recorded. So we got some new equipment, but it was all analog based. The advancements in 10 years has been incredible. As you can see, we have new cameras at the East End Elementary. We have them at the library. We have a few here in our building. our police department needs some enhancements, so I put money in to enhance. We have about 6 or 7 cameras that we'd like to replace. Just the other day, we're talking, we had an incident out in our backyard, and we couldn't pick it up because the cameras just don't have that finite resolution to allow us to do that. If it was one of the other places in town, we could have. But everything's on a DVR, it's all recorded now, so we want to make sure we have the cameras to record the best possible information, so it can be of some assistance to us if needed. Primarily, the biggest concern is in our cell block area, making sure we have a good eye on our prisoners when we have a visitor to our lovely motel there. A couple other answers to some questions that I don't think I answered, but I'm going to do that right now because I know you've been waiting. Has the department faced difficulty recruiting? I think I answered that. We actually have been pretty lucky, at least for now, and I hope that continues. Have we lost or put employees due to their inability to find a place to live? No, in fact, the officer we just hired that just got out of the academy is living here in Eastham, which I was happy to hear. He rented a place, and he's almost out of his field training. So tomorrow's, he's on the road, Officer Peterson. Now to your answer. Can you make a left turn on a Samoset? There is a preemption on that. The problem that we think is, depending on where you line up and whether there's another vehicle behind or in front of you, will dictate whether that light actually gives you that preemption for the left. But it is there.
Just to me, as you know, I live north of this, and to me, that intersection is the most dangerous intersection in town. And I have been on the right lane to go north. We have had cars on the left who want to turn left, and it doesn't show an arrow. I've been in the left to take a left to go to the library or whatever, and it doesn't show an arrow. Sometimes it shows an arrow. But the light up further on Route 6 near Nauset always has an arrow to the left, no matter who is there.
I think the problem is that's a newer system that actually was changed after a part-time taxpayer meeting. I had gone to the state and asked them to put that left turn at Nauset, and they actually did it.
'Cause it used to have that delay, which was scary.
Right. So we'll talk to
Hold
the
your
state
breath.
and see if we can enhance this as well to address your concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And unless you have any questions, I think all of us are tired. I just want to thank all of you, not just for tonight, or for 10 years. I'll be retiring in a few weeks. So thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege. It's been fun.
Yeah,
And I
thank
can't
you.
believe this is my last budget presentation
I know.
before you. But I could come back and have fun with Adam.
I think Martin and I were the only ones here when you came
That
on.
is correct.
And, yeah, we were
It's been
thrilled to
a
have you
fun
then,
ride.
and
Thank you.
it's been a great,
Thank you.
well,
Much-
almost 11 years now.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. All right.
What are you
Do
gonna
wanna
do now?
Make your,
Going to holiday, I don't know what I'm doing. What do they say?
Don't
I'm going
leave
to
yet.
Disney World. Actually, the first month, I'm just going to go to Florida and relax with my wife, and then we're going to see. I am going to come back and do some work for Jackie part-time and finish out the fiscal year and help with the transition to the new chief. So I look forward to that, and I'll always be around.
And with your permission, I'll take a minute, okay? It's with great sadness for me and for us, I think, that Ed is retiring. It's joyful for him. We think everyone deserves a decent retirement, and he's going to have a great one. I know this guy is. But you've been so widely respected, and your professionalism, how you've professionalized our force here in Eastham and achieved accreditation of the department and built this amazing team that we have. So there are no worries with you leaving because of the fine work you've done. And I think as a leader, that's exactly what we want in our leadership, is to be able to leave the deepest bench behind possible. right? I'll miss you, your support, your wisdom,
me cry.
your sense of
You already
humor.
did
I know,
that
I'm
once.
trying not to. We've
The
already
day I
cried
announced.
once together. And there's no replacement, but in the last couple of months, as we've been talking, the chief and I, and discussing the needs of the department, and I've given the transition considerable thought back and forth, and it's my decision and my great pleasure to appoint Adam Bohannon as our next police chief on the 21st when Ed leaves. I just want to say one nice thing, so maybe I can make somebody else cry, I don't know, but he's a 19-year veteran of our force. He's grew up in Eastham, and he's dedicated his whole career to Eastham, and I have faith that he will continue to dedicate his whole career to the town of Eastham. And I'm so convinced that there's no person with a finer character or a better work ethic to lead this exemplary team of professionals, really. Yes. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. All right,
So thank you for your patience.
so we're going to,
say that when the room was full.
we're going to start ticking down the list. There's a,
Want to make a motion to table everything?
no, we
except
can't. Some things are sometimes.
Not that aren't time sensitive?
Yes, I was going to say that. I've ticked off a few things that we can skip.
Can I adjourn?
Yes.
I'd like to
Yep.
make a motion to adjourn.
All right, next
Second.
item,
All in favor?
participation,
Thank you.
participation in FY20 Truro Regional CDBG grant authorization. Need a motion.
We do this every year. It provides subsidies for childcare and for housing renovation.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 5-0. Letter of support for the housing rehabilitation grant.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? 5-0. All right, election warrant for presidential primary on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020. I've already signed the document, and so that's going forward. Board of Registrars, we have resignations of Kathy Thomas, Maureen Angiar, and Assistant Registrar Audrey Bohannon. And then the appointment of Madeline Vicky Anderson, Susan Rekwa Trouts, and Linda Sassy.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Kathy Thomas, Marine, and Dujar, and Audrey Bohannon. Appoint Madeline Vicky Anderson, Susan Raka Trouts, and Linda Sassy.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 5-0. All right, we can skip the next one, the health agent. We'll skip that conference till next week. The draft MOU for Nauset Estuary. Al and I went to the meeting with Orleans. Basically, we're dropping the portion that talks about the seashore because they are unable to sign the MOU, so it will just be between Orleans and Eastham. And we've talked about appointing representative from the town administrator's office. We have some, Jackie's talked to some of the fishermen, shell fishermen. We're going to get, I believe, probably 5 or 6 crew.
Need a representative from the board
the
as
board
well,
also,
which
right.
I nominate Jared Collins.
Okay.
Would you be willing to do that, Jared?
The meetings are after 3:30 in the afternoon, if that makes.
And it's on the estuary.
What?
that? How much after?
It's like 3:30 to 5:30. That's what they are. Sorry. Just thought I'd,
Don't have to make a decision about that right
No.
this second, do we? Good.
No,
Okay.
just
recently. I think it's someone else's
we'll put it on the February 10th agenda so you can,
appoint.
yeah,
Okay.
appoint.
How does this relate to our telling them to go ahead and do the permitting?
So part of the,
Go ahead. No, no.
Either one of
Go
us.
ahead.
Part of the permitting process, which we agreed to participate in, is to put a committee together of representatives.
This
for the
MOU
MO
for-
Yeah,
yeah.
for the MOU. It's part of the, MIPA and
Yeah, to keep us
NEPA
on track,
process.
yeah.
You have to appoint a committee officially
Right.
to go forward with permitting. Each town that signs onto this MOU has to be part of that committee.
I'll be happy to do a sidebar with you after and explain the process, but nothing has changed.
Well, nothing's changed, yeah.
The only thing that's changed is the language in the MOU as, because of,
Seashore.
I believe, legal reasons, the
Right,
Seashore
they
had to
can't.
take their name off the MOU.
Can't
It's the
sign
exact same otherwise. So I would recommend that we just, well, I don't even know if we need anything.
We don't need a
it.
vote, we
All right,
just,
cool.
yeah, sign it.
Great.
And, lost what I was gonna say. Oh, we're still on track, the same, I mean, we agreed to basically not stand in their way. They're gonna go forward with,
Where are they?
we're pretty much at the same point we were before. Really, there's been a few studies done, but they don't have the bulk of it done. The Red Tide pilot project isn't completed yet. They were wrapping it up.
Still a long ways to go.
Yep. All right. So we can sign it. Should we don't have to vote to sign it, or do we?
Nope, you just have to sign it.
Okay.
Well, if you want to vote, it couldn't hurt.
Yeah, we could, it's basically identical without the Seashore language in it.
I'll make a
It was in the
motion to
pack.
sign the MOU as it's written currently.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? Because it doesn't, there's no financial obligation in it, obviously. It's just to work together.
Yeah, you already signed it once.
Yep.
We've already signed it once. We literally just took
All in
out
favor?
one sentence.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. All right, the rest we can skip until town administrators report. Anything pressing?
No, nothing pressing.
All right. Jared?
Nothing, they can't wait till February 10th.
The Shellfish Working Group
Uh-oh.
being set up by Natural Resources is still looking for more members. And I
Okay.
should have brought that up at the beginning, but we seem to have more pressing things at that time.
It's okay, we'll recruit.
On the website, it says January 31st, 2020, but she's still looking for
Extend it,
applications.
All right.
This will remain open until filled. we should
Until
say.
filled.
Thank you, everyone, for a long night, but I think it was worth it.
It's only once a year. We can do it.
All right,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Kent, that was great.